After 8 months of caring for my bedridden wife, a man suddenly demanded to see me and said, "Call the police. Right now. You've been taking care of the wrong person." My heart pounded uncontrollably. I thought about the woman I had been caring for all those months, the same face, the same presence I had never once questioned. Then a chilling thought crept in: if she isn't my wife, then who have I been taking care of all this time? This story starts quietly, but it won't leave you unchanged. Before we begin, leave a quick comment. Where are you listening from and what time is it there? I read every one. Quick note, some details are fictionalized to strengthen the message, but what truly matters is the lesson at its heart. My hands know the exact temperature before the thermometer confirms it, 37.5 degrees Celsius. Not 37, not 38. Paralyzed skin burns easier than you'd think, and after 8 months of this routine, I've memorized the precise measurements that keep my wife alive. I'm Forrest Emerson, 57 years old, a Boeing 777 captain with 23 years at the airline, and these days my hands are steadier, measuring bathwater than they ever were landing planes in crosswinds. 6:15 in the morning. I got home from Tokyo 14 hours ago, slept 3 hours, and now I'm preparing the sponge bath. The hospital bed sits in our living room by the window, the one that used to look out on our garden. Now it looks out on medical supplies. The woman in the bed blinks once when I ask if she's ready. 1 blink means yes. 2 blinks mean no. That's how we communicate now. She's been like this since March, since the accident at Westheimer and Post Oak during the rain. Shelby Emerson, my wife of 27 years, 55 years old. Auburn hair now limp against the pillow, green eyes that used to light up when I walked through the door. I test the water on my wrist like you would for a baby. Perfect. I dip the sponge and begin with her left arm, the way the physical therapist taught me. Slow, gentle strokes. The spinal injury was at L3 to L4. Complete paralysis from the waist down. Partial sensation in the upper body, but she can't move, can't speak, can't do anything except blink. I'll tell you about the flight, I say, because silence feels worse than one-sided conversation. Turbulence over the Pacific. Nothing serious, just enough to spill coffee in business class. There was a passenger in 14C who reminded me of your father. Same way of folding his newspaper, same reading glasses. She blinks once, listening. I change the dressing on her lower back where the surgical scars are still healing. 8 months, and they're still not fully closed. I work carefully the way I run through pre-flight checklists. Gauze antiseptic tape, everything in order, everything precise. Do you remember? I ask, wiping her face with a warm cloth, the first time we went to Tokyo together. For our anniversary, the cherry blossoms at Ueno Park. She looks at me. 2 seconds pass. Then she blinks once. I pause, just for a moment. 2 seconds isn't long, but Shelby would have answered that instantly. We spent 3 days in Tokyo for our 10th anniversary. She cried when the petals fell, but maybe I'm imagining things. Fatigue does strange things to perception. I finish the bath, dress her in a clean gown, and start on breakfast. Pureed oatmeal. She can swallow, but solid food is too risky. I feed her with a small spoon, wiping her chin between bites the way you would with a child. What does devotion look like? It looks like knowing the exact temperature that won't burn paralyzed skin, the exact angle that prevents bed sores, the exact rhythm of a life that isn't yours anymore. It looks like coming home from flying 700 people across an ocean and measuring bath water before you've even taken off your uniform. The first time I met her sister, I thought I was seeing a ghost. January 2023, 14 months ago. Her father's funeral at Memorial Oaks in Houston. I'd been married to Shelby for 26 years, and I'd never met her twin. She'd mentioned Yolanda a handful of times over the decades, always in passing, always with a tightness in her voice that made me stop asking questions. But there she was at the funeral, Yolanda Vincent, 55 years old, walking through the door of the funeral home, and I actually stepped back. Same height as Shelby, same auburn hair, same green eyes, same small mole on the left cheek. Identical twins, separated as children when their parents divorced. One grew up with their mother in Dallas, one with their father in Houston. 15 years of minimal contact. Shelby saw her and froze. No hug, no tears. They stood 3 feet apart like strangers who happened to share a face. Yolanda's eyes swept the room, landed on me, and she walked over. No condolences, no introduction. Her first words to me were, "Do you know how the will is divided?" I blinked. "I'm sorry. My father's estate. Shelby gets half, I assume. Do you know the specifics?" She said it the way you'd ask about the weather. Clinical. Detached. I looked over at Shelby, who was staring at the casket with tears running down her face, and then back at this woman with her face who hadn't shed a single tear. I don't know the details, I said. This isn't really the time. Of course. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. We'll talk later. After the service, Shelby explained in the car. She grew up with our mother. We're not close. Don't mind her. Grief makes people strange. I thought grief looked different than that, but I didn't push. Now, sitting in our living room in December 2024, wiping oatmeal from my wife's chin, I think about that moment differently. 8 months. I've been doing this for 8 months. The accident happened in March. I was flying Sydney to Los Angeles when I got the call. Yolanda called me. Not the hospital, not the police. Yolanda, who I'd met exactly once, who had my number somehow, who told me Shelby had been in a car accident and was in surgery at Memorial Hermann. By the time I landed and got to Houston, Shelby was already in the ICU, paralyzed. Yolanda was in the waiting room. She stayed, offered to help, said she felt guilty for all the years they'd been apart, wanted to make up for lost time. She moved into our guest room for what she said would be a few weeks. 8 months later, she's still here. I finish feeding my wife and clean up the breakfast dishes. She blinks twice when I ask if she needs anything else. No. That hesitation. 2 seconds before she answered about Tokyo. At the time, I barely noticed, but now it sits in my chest like turbulence I can't shake. I tell myself I'm imagining things. Exhaustion from the red eye, nothing more. But I didn't ask why Yolanda wanted to know about the will. I didn't ask why she appeared at the hospital so quickly after the accident before I even landed. I didn't ask why a woman who hadn't seen her sister in 15 years suddenly offered to stay and help for a few weeks. 8 months later, I still haven't asked those questions. But I'm about to start asking. Maybe if I'd asked those questions in March, I wouldn't be standing here in December wondering how I missed the signs. But you don't ask questions when you're grateful. You don't interrogate grace. The accident happened on a Tuesday in March at the intersection of Westheimer and Post Oak in rain so heavy that the truck driver later swore he never saw her step off the curb. The police report said she was in the crosswalk. The light was green for pedestrians. The truck was a semi-hauling construction equipment and the driver was looking at his phone when he ran the red. Shelby was thrown 15 feet. The impact fractured her spine at L3 to L4. The paramedics said she was conscious when they arrived, crying, trying to move her legs. By the time they loaded her into the ambulance, she couldn't feel anything below her waist. I was 35,000 feet over the Pacific Ocean, 6 hours into a 14-hour flight to Seoul when it happened. I didn't know until 2 hours later when the satellite phone rang in the cockpit. I thought it was the airline. It wasn't. Forrest, it's Yolanda, Shelby's sister. I hadn't spoken to her since the funeral. 14 months of silence, and now her voice in my ear at 35,000 feet. There's been an accident, she said. Shelby's at Memorial Hermann. She's in surgery. My co-pilot took the controls without me asking. I sat there with the phone pressed to my ear, watching clouds scroll past the window like I was in a dream. What happened? A truck. She was crossing the street. They're saying spinal injury. I'm at the hospital now. I got here as fast as I could. I looked at my watch. The accident had been 4 hours ago. I'd been unreachable 23,000 miles from home, flying a plane full of passengers who had no idea the captain's world was ending. How long until you can be here? Yolanda asked. I did the math. 8 more hours to Seoul, 2-hour layover, 15 hours back to Houston. 25 hours, I said. Maybe more. I'll stay with her, Yolanda said. She won't be alone. I should have asked how she got there so fast, how she heard about the accident before I did, how she knew which hospital. But I was too numb to think, and when you're in shock, gratitude overrides suspicion. I landed in Seoul, turned around, and flew home without sleeping. By the time I got to Memorial Hermann, it had been 18 hours since the accident. Yolanda was in the waiting room, still in the same clothes, looking like she hadn't left. She's out of surgery, she said when she saw me. Stable. They're saying the paralysis is permanent. I sat down in the plastic chair and put my head in my hands. Yolanda sat beside me. We didn't speak for a long time. I can stay, she finally said. For a few weeks. However long you need. She's my sister. This is what family does. I looked at her. Same face as Shelby? Same green eyes, same auburn hair, same way of tilting her head when she was thinking. But not Shelby. Never Shelby. Never. I don't know how to thank you, I said. You don't have to. We'll figure it out together. 9 months. She said a few weeks and stayed for 9 months. At the time, it felt like grace. Now, standing in this dark hallway, listening to silence from a locked basement, I wonder what grace really costs. The sound woke me at 2:47 in the morning. Tuesday, December, 9 months after the accident. At first, I thought I was dreaming. A rhythmic knocking muffled coming from somewhere below my bedroom. I lay there staring at the ceiling, listening. Knock, knock, knock. Pause. Knock, knock, knock. I sat up. The house was silent except for the sound. Not the heating system, not pipes settling, too regular, too deliberate. I got out of bed and stood in the hallway. The knocking was louder here, definitely coming from below, from the basement. Yolanda keeps her things in the basement. She moved in with 2 suitcases and a storage box, said she'd put everything downstairs so it wouldn't be in the way. The basement door has been locked ever since. She keeps the key in her room. "So I can get my things myself," she explained when I asked about it the first time. "I don't want to bother you every time I need something." I walked downstairs in the dark, following the sound. It was louder on the first floor, rhythmic and insistent. 3 knocks, 2-second pause, 3 knocks, over and over. I reached the basement door and put my hand on the knob. Locked. The knocking stopped. Complete silence. I stood there for 30 seconds listening. Nothing. Just the hum of the refrigerator and the distant sound of traffic on the street outside. I went back upstairs, got into bed, closed my eyes. Knock, knock, knock. Pause. Knock, knock, knock. The sound stopped the instant I reached the basement door, as if whatever made it was listening for my footsteps, as if it knew when I was close and when I was far. I tried the door handle again. Still locked. I pressed my ear against the wood and held my breath. Silence. I stood there for 5 minutes. Nothing. Back upstairs. Back to bed. The knocking started again before I reached my room. This time I didn't go down. I sat on the edge of my mattress and counted. 3 knocks, 2-second pause, 3 knocks, 2-second pause, perfectly timed, perfectly consistent. No pipe makes that sound. No heating duct, no settling foundation. I counted 47 repetitions before it finally stopped at 4:15 in the morning. Then I lay back down and stared at the ceiling until the sun came up. The first time I thought I misheard. The second time I thought it was a pipe. The third time I started counting the beats. 3 taps. Stop. 3 taps. Stop. No pipe taps like that. By morning, I'd convinced myself it was nothing. By morning, I'd almost convinced myself the knocking was nothing. 47 repetitions, I kept telling myself. You counted because you were tired, because you'd flown 14 hours and slept 3, because grief and exhaustion make you hear things that aren't there. Then I walked into the kitchen and saw Yolanda's face when I asked about it. 7 in the morning, Wednesday. Coffee brewing, early light coming through the window above the sink. She was already awake, sitting at the table with a cup in her hands, looking more alert than someone who'd supposedly been asleep all night. "Did you hear anything strange last night?" I asked, pouring myself coffee, trying to sound casual. "From downstairs." She didn't hesitate, not even a pause. "Mice probably," she said. "We're close to the lake. They come in this time of year. I can call an exterminator if you want." The answer came too fast, too prepared, like she'd been waiting for the question. I opened my mouth to press further, to say that mice don't knock in patterns, that I'd counted 47 repetitions of the same 3-beat rhythm. But before I could speak, she stood up. "Forrest," she said, and her voice broke. "Look." She was sitting upright in the wheelchair, not leaning, not propped, sitting. "For the first time," she whispered and reached for my hand. 8 months, and I can finally sit up on my own. The physical therapist said it might happen, but I didn't believe her. I didn't believe I'd ever. Her eyes filled with tears, real tears running down her cheeks. She squeezed my hand. "Thank you," she said, "for not giving up on me." I stood there with my coffee cup in one hand and her hand in the other, and the question about the knocking evaporated. What kind of person interrogates their paralyzed wife about basement noises when she's just achieved the first milestone in 8 months? I squeezed her hand back. "I'm so proud of you," I said. And I am, whoever she is. 10 o'clock. I'm upstairs in the hallway, standing outside the bedroom, replaying the conversation. 8 months I've watched her blink that code. 1 for yes, 2 for no. I know the rhythm of her breathing, the exact angle she sleeps, the food she can swallow without choking. I know that she used to hum while she cooked, that she tapped her fingers when she was thinking, that she never wore her wedding ring to bed because it bothered her knuckles. So why don't I know how my wife changes a subject? Shelby asks questions first, always has. If I brought up a strange noise, she'd ask what kind of noise, where exactly, how loud, when did I first hear it. 3 questions minimum before she'd offer an explanation or change topics. This woman said mice and then immediately pivoted to the sitting up milestone. No questions, no curiosity, just deflection and emotion. Practiced. That's the word that keeps coming back. It felt practiced. I walk downstairs and stand in front of the basement door. Still locked. The key is in Yolanda's room, in the drawer of the nightstand beside the hospital bed. I know because I saw her put it there months ago. I put my hand on the doorknob anyway. It doesn't turn. Silence on the other side. I stand there for 5 minutes listening. Nothing. 3:30 in the afternoon. I'm at the front gate when Lorraine Wolfe comes over. She's 70 years old, lives in the townhouse next door, the one that shares our western wall. She's wearing a cardigan despite the Houston heat and carrying a plate covered in aluminum foil. Pound cake, probably. She brings pound cake when she's being polite and doesn't want to overstep. Forrest, she says, smiling that careful smile people use when they're talking to someone whose life fell apart. How's Shelby doing? Better, I say. She sat up on her own this morning. Oh, that's wonderful. She hands me the plate. I made this yesterday. Thought you might need something sweet. Thank you, Lorraine. She starts to turn away, then stops. I heard that strange noise last night, she says like she's mentioning the weather. Through the wall. A knocking sound. I freeze. You heard it. My bedroom's right next to your basement foundation, she says. The sound comes through pretty clearly. I thought maybe you had a repair person working down there, but at 2 a.m, she laughs a little embarrassed. I almost came over to check if something was wrong. My hand tightens on the plate. When did you first hear it? Oh, it's been like this for several nights now. She waves her hand. I didn't want to bother you about it. I know you have enough on your plate with Shelby's care, but last night it was louder than usual. Several nights. Not just last night. Several. How many nights, I ask? She thinks. 4 or 5. I started noticing it last week. Thursday, I think, or maybe Wednesday. She looks at me more carefully now. Is everything okay? Yes, I lie. I'll check the pipes, probably just the heating system. In December? She frowns. Well, if you say so, let me know if you need anything. She walks back to her house and I stand at the gate holding the pound cake, doing the math. Last Wednesday I was flying to Tokyo. I left Tuesday afternoon and didn't get home until Thursday morning, 40 hours away. The knocking happened while I was gone. Last Thursday I was home, but I slept from 6 in the evening until 6 the next morning. 12 hours of dead sleep after 2 back-to-back international flights. The knocking happened and I didn't hear it. Friday and Saturday I was home. No knocking, or at least I didn't hear any. Sunday I flew to Seoul, came back Monday. Tuesday night, last night, I heard it for the first time. 47 repetitions of 3 knocks, 2-second pause, 3 knocks. She heard it. Not just one night, several nights. And she's looking at me with an expression that wants to ask something but doesn't dare. I walk back inside and close the door. She heard it. Not just last night, several nights, through the shared wall while I was flying across the Pacific while I was asleep after 18-hour shifts. The knocking doesn't stop when I'm gone. It continues. Someone is down there and they're not trying to get out when I'm away. They're trying to reach me specifically. If someone is trying to reach me from that basement, I need to know why, and I need to know who's stopping them. Wednesday evening. The will sat in front of me under the yellow desk lamp in my second-floor office. A document I'd never read carefully because when your wife is paralyzed, inheritance feels like counting money at a funeral. But now I needed to know. I found it in the filing cabinet under estate documents. Her father died 14 months ago. The will was executed in probate court 3 months later while Shelby was still recovering from the initial surgeries before she'd been moved from the hospital to our home. I opened it and started reading. Page 3. Distribution of assets. To my daughter, Shelby Vincent Emerson, I leave the entirety of my estate, including but not limited to all real property investment accounts and personal assets totaling approximately $12 million. I read it again. Then I flipped through the remaining pages. 8 pages total. Yolanda's name appeared exactly 0 times. $12 million, everything, to Shelby. Nothing to the other twin. I sat back in my chair and thought about the funeral, about Yolanda walking up to me before the service even started, before she'd said hello to her sister, before she'd looked at the casket. Do you know how the will is divided? That was her first question. Not how are you holding up, not I'm sorry for your loss. The will. At the time I thought she was being tactless. Grief makes people say strange things, I told myself. But she wasn't grieving, she was calculating. $12 million to one daughter, 0 to the other. And 3 months later, when Shelby was hit by that truck when I was on a plane over the Pacific Ocean, Yolanda was at the hospital before I even knew there'd been an accident. She offered to stay and help. A few weeks, she said. 8 months later, she's still here. I closed the will and stared at the wall. No one provides round-the-clock care for their sister for 8 months without compensation. Not when they haven't spoken in 15 years. Not when they were left out of the will entirely. What does selflessness look like? Does it look like a woman who ignored her sister for 15 years suddenly sleeping on a cot beside her hospital bed, changing her diapers, feeding her pureed food, washing her hair in a hospital sink? Or does it look like patience, like someone waiting for something, planning something $12 million is worth waiting for? But how Shelby inherited the money? Not Yolanda. The will is clear. Even if Shelby dies, the estate passes to me as her spouse, not to her sister. Unless I stood up and walked to the window. Looked down at the driveway where Yolanda's car sat beside mine. Unless there's something I don't know, some angle I haven't seen. The knocking, the hesitation about Tokyo, the way she changes subjects. All of it connected to $12 million. Thursday morning, I arrived at IAH Terminal E at 5:30 for the 6:45 flight to Seoul. Checked in, went through security, walked to the gate. Basil Pierce was already there. He's been my co-pilot for 15 years, 56 years old, with laugh lines around his eyes and a coffee habit that makes mine look reasonable. We've flown together so long we don't need to talk much. Just nod, check the flight plan, and go. But we didn't go. At 6:15, the gate agent made the announcement. Mechanical issue, hydraulic leak in the number 2 system. Flight canceled. Rebooking available for tomorrow, or they could put us on the evening departure if we wanted to wait. I'm taking the day, Basil said, heading toward the crew lounge. See you next rotation. I grabbed my bag and walked back to the parking garage. I didn't call ahead, didn't think to, just drove home on instinct. 10:15 in the morning. I pulled into the driveway. Yolanda's car was there. I walked to the front door, quietly, key already in my hand. The house was quiet. I opened the door, stepped inside, and heard her voice coming from the living room. The door was partially open. She was on the phone. The voice that came through that door wasn't the voice of someone who needed help sitting up. It was the voice of someone giving orders. Told you it needs to be done by the 15th, no later. I don't care what he. I stepped into the doorway. She saw me. Her voice switched, mid-sentence, instantly. Yes, doctor, I understand. Thank you for calling. She hung up, looked at me. Her face was calm, but her hand on the phone was white-knuckled. You're home early? She said. The voice was breathy now. Weak. The voice I'd been hearing for 8 months. Flight got canceled, I said. Mechanical issue. Oh, she smiled. Well, I'm glad you're safe. That was Dr. Barton calling about the new medication. He wants to adjust the dosage. I stood there looking at her. Same face as Shelby. Same auburn hair pulled back, same green eyes, same way of holding her head when she was trying to look innocent. But the voice I'd heard through the door wasn't Shelby's voice. It wasn't a paralyzed woman's voice. It was sharp, decisive, authoritative. And then it switched. Like flipping a switch, from healthy to sick in one breath. Do you need anything? I asked. No, I'm fine, just resting. Okay. I walked upstairs to my bedroom and closed the door. That night I couldn't sleep. I went back downstairs at 11 and sat in the chair beside the hospital bed. She was asleep, breathing slowly, evenly, the way Shelby always slept. I looked at her face in the dim light from the hallway. Same features, same auburn hair, though it was longer now than Shelby usually wore it. Same small mole on the left cheek, same bone structure, same lips, same eyebrows, same identical. But I've looked into my wife's eyes for 28 years. I know the way they crinkle when she laughs, the way they go distant when she's thinking about something sad, the way they soften when she looks at me in the morning. I leaned closer. Same green eyes, same gold flecks around the iris, but not the same depth, not the same way of looking, not the same person looking out from behind them. For 8 months, I'd looked into those eyes every day, bathing her, feeding her, moving her carefully so she wouldn't develop bed sores. Same face I'd woken up next to for 28 years. But that night, really looking, those weren't my wife's eyes. Those were someone else's eyes in my wife's face. I spent Thursday night staring at those eyes. Friday morning, I fed her breakfast, changed her dressing, gave her the medications. Same routine, same face. But now I was looking at a stranger. Basil Pierce's name lit up my phone screen Friday afternoon, while I sat in the supermarket parking lot with a trunk full of groceries and a head full of questions I couldn't ask anyone. I answered. Hey, just wanted to check in, he said. Yesterday was a weird day with the cancellation. How are you holding up? Basil's been my co-pilot for 15 years. We've flown together through typhoons over the South China Sea, emergency descents into Anchorage, and one very memorable engine fire over Greenland. His voice on the phone sounded like it always does. Warm, concerned, a friend checking on a friend. I'm managing, I said. Same routine. You know how it is. 8 months is a long time, brother. You're a better man than most. I don't know if I could do what you're doing. You do what you have to do. Yeah, he paused. How's Shelby progressing? Can she sit up yet, or is she still fully bedbound? I shifted the phone to my other ear. She sat up Wednesday, first time in 8 months. That's great, really great. Which doctor has been monitoring her? Still the same one from the hospital. Dr. Barton, he comes by twice a week. And her sister Yolanda, right? She's still helping out. You see her often. She lives with us, in the guest room. Man, that's good. You shouldn't have to do this alone. Listen, I've got to run, but if you need anything, I mean anything, you call me, okay? I will. Thanks, Basil. I hung up, sat there with the phone in my hand and the groceries warming in the trunk. Then it hit me. Can she sit up yet? Not how is she doing, not any progress lately. He asked specifically if she can sit up. That happened Wednesday morning, 2 days ago. I told no one. Not the crew, not my family, not my neighbors. I came home from the canceled flight Thursday, caught that voice switch spent Thursday night, realizing those weren't my wife's eyes. I haven't been to work, haven't called anyone, haven't posted anything, haven't sent any messages. So how does Basil know to ask if she can sit up yet? 15 years we've flown together. 15 years of pre-flight checks and Pacific crossings and crew meals in Tokyo hotels. I know his kids' names, his ex-wife's lawyer, the bar where he goes after hard flights. And he's asking me questions he already knows the answers to. Who told him? And why did he call to confirm details he wasn't supposed to know? I started the car and drove home with the groceries still in the trunk. Friday night, 9:30. I was in my office looking for the car insurance renewal that was due next week. I knew I'd filed it somewhere in the cabinet under the window. The filing cabinet was a mess. 8 months of medical bills and flight schedules and prescription records all mixed together with old tax returns and maintenance receipts. I'd stopped organizing things the way Shelby used to. Just shoved papers in whatever drawer had space. I found the insurance renewal in the second drawer, and underneath it an envelope I didn't recognize. Fidelity Investments, addressed to Shelby Emerson, dated October. I turned it over, still sealed. Had been sitting in my filing cabinet for 2 months unopened. I didn't remember Shelby having a Fidelity account. Our retirement was through the airline. Our savings was at Chase. We had a small investment account at Vanguard that I managed, mostly index funds, maybe $40,000. I opened the envelope. Quarterly investment statement. Third quarter, July through September. Account number ending in 7431. Account holder Shelby Vincent Emerson. I scanned down the page. Holdings. A long list of stocks I recognized: Apple, Microsoft, Amazon, and some I didn't. Cryptocurrency, bonds, real estate investment trusts. At the bottom of the second page, account balance as of October 31st, $6,487,231. I read it again. Then I sat down in the chair and read it a third time. $6.5 million. My wife had an investment account worth $6.5 million, and I never knew it existed. I flipped to the first page. Account opened August 2016, 8 years ago. While I was flying to Sydney and Tokyo and Frankfurt, while I was gone 200 days a year, Shelby was trading stocks, building a portfolio, accumulating wealth I knew nothing about. I thought about our conversations over the years, about how she'd ask about my retirement contributions, about whether we should put more into the Vanguard account, about how she'd clip coupons and comparison shop for car insurance and wait for sales to buy new furniture. And the whole time she had $6.5 million in a secret account. My wife. The woman I thought spent her days waiting for me to come home from flights, had been quietly building a fortune I knew nothing about. I sat there holding that statement and thought about Yolanda at the funeral, asking how the will was divided. About $12 million in the estate going entirely to Shelby. About a sister who got nothing suddenly moving in to provide 8 months of free care. About basement knocking that follows a pattern. About eyes that aren't my wife's eyes. About a voice that switches from commanding to weak the instant she knows I'm listening. The $12 million inheritance was just the beginning. This $6.5 million in secret holdings, this was the real target. Yolanda didn't stay to help her sister recover. She stayed because she found out about this account. Somehow. Some way. And if the woman in my living room isn't Shelby, if those eyes belong to Yolanda pretending to be her twin, then she needs access to this account. Needs Shelby's identity. Needs everyone to believe the paralyzed woman in the hospital bed is the real Shelby Emerson. I looked at the statement again. $6,487,231. This isn't my wife's money. This is why. If she needs access to that account, she needs everyone to believe she's Shelby, which means somewhere my real wife is either dead or hidden, and I need proof before I can find out which. The hospital records clerk gave me Nettie Newberry's last known address on a post-it note with a look that said she wasn't supposed to, and Monday morning I drove to a small house in Katy with flower beds and a mailbox that hadn't been painted in years. Nettie Newberry, registered nurse, employed at Memorial Hermann from 2019 to June 2024. Assigned to Shelby's care from March through May. Employment ended June 15th. Reason listed: family request. She cared for my wife when my wife was still my wife. Before the replacement. Before whatever happened that put someone else in Shelby's bed. If anyone noticed something wrong, it would be the nurse who bathed her, changed her dressings, knew her body. I parked on the street and walked up to the door. Knocked twice. The woman who answered was 47 years old with gray-streaked hair pulled back and nurse's scrubs on, even though it was her day off. She looked at me and her face went pale. "Mr. Emerson," she said. She knew who I was, which meant she'd been thinking about this for months. "Ms. Newberry, I needed to talk to you about my wife. I can't help you. I was asked to leave your wife's care. I signed something. I can't. She started to close the door. Please, I said. 5 minutes. I just need to ask you about the first 3 months, before you left. She stopped, looked at me with the kind of guilt that comes from knowing something's wrong and being paid to forget it. Come in, she said quietly, but I don't know what I can tell you that would help. Her living room was small and neat. Photos on the mantel, a cross on the wall, coffee table with a Bible and a TV remote. We sat down. She folded her hands in her lap like she was about to confess something. Why did you leave? I asked. Your wife's sister asked me to. Said the family wanted to handle the care themselves. Gave me a severance check and asked me to sign a non-disclosure agreement. How much? She looked down. $3,000. I sat back. $3,000. That's what they paid her to look the other way. I spend more than that on 1 month of medical supplies. They bought silence cheap and almost got away with it. Did you notice anything strange? I asked. Before you left. She was quiet for a long time. The replacement nurse, she finally said. The one they brought in to take over. The way she looked at your wife. Not like a nurse. Like, she stopped. Like she was studying her. Taking notes. When was this? Late May, early June. Your wife's sister introduced her. Said she'd be helping with the transition when they moved your wife home from the hospital annex. What was her name? I don't remember. She didn't last long. By the time I left, she was gone too. I leaned forward. Ms. Newberry, I think the woman in my house isn't my wife. I think someone switched them. I need proof. Did you keep any records? DDTs. She stood up, walked to the hallway, came back 2 minutes later carrying a cardboard box. Her hands were shaking. They paid me to leave quietly, she said, setting the box on the coffee table. They paid me not to ask questions, but I couldn't destroy these. I photocopied everything before I left. Every medical record, every lab result, every intake form. She opened the box. Inside were manila folders organized by date, March through June, hundreds of pages. My conscience wouldn't let me throw them away, she said. I knew something was wrong. I didn't know what, but I knew. I pulled out the first folder. March 2024. Hospital intake forms from the day of the accident. Patient name, Shelby Vincent Emerson. Age 55, height 5 feet 6 inches, weight 132 pounds, blood type O negative. I read it twice. Blood type O negative. That matched what I knew. Shelby had donated blood twice a year since college, always joked about being a universal donor. What am I looking for? I asked. Nettie pulled out another folder. September 2024. Recent lab work. She laid both documents side by side on the table. This is your wife's intake from March, she said, pointing to the first page. Blood type O negative, right here. I looked. There it was, clearly documented. This is a lab test from September, she said, pointing to the second page. Same patient name, blood type A positive. I stared at both documents. Same name at the top, Shelby Vincent Emerson, same date of birth, same patient ID number. Different blood types. Blood type doesn't change, Mr. Emerson, Nettie said quietly. It can't change. Not from injury, not from medication, not from anything. You're born with it and you die with it. I held both documents in my hands. Same name, different blood, one person on paper, 2 people in reality. These are 2 different people, I said. Yes? I looked at her. You knew. I suspected. The replacement nurse, the sudden dismissal, the money, the NDA. But I didn't have proof until I saw that September lab work. By then I'd already left. I didn't know what to do. Who would believe me? Your wife's sister is living in your house. You're caring for her every day. Who would I tell? You're telling me now. Because you came looking. Because you already know something's wrong. I stood up, put both documents in my jacket pocket. Can I take these? Take all of it, she said, gesturing to the box. I've been carrying this for 8 months, waiting for someone to ask the right questions. I picked up the box, looked at her. Thank you. Find her, Nettie said. Find your real wife. Because if they went to this much trouble to replace her, she's somewhere and she's alive, or was when they made the switch. I walked back to my car with the box in my arms and sat in the driver's seat for 10 minutes before I could turn the key. Blood type O negative. That's my wife. The woman who danced at our wedding, who built a secret investment portfolio, who survived a truck running a red light. The person lying in my living room has blood type A positive. The person I've been bathing, feeding, caring for, that's someone else. The question is, where is my real wife? I needed to know if she was alive. The blood type proved the woman upstairs was an impostor. The knocking suggested someone was trapped below, but I needed absolute certainty before I made a move. The hardest thing I've ever done wasn't landing a 777 in a typhoon or watching my wife's spine shatter in a hospital MRI. It was walking back into my house Monday afternoon with blood type proof in my pocket and smiling at the woman in my living room like I didn't know she was a stranger. "I'm home," I called out, setting my keys on the counter. She was in the hospital bed where I'd left her. Same auburn hair, same green eyes, same face I'd kissed for 28 years. "How are you feeling today?" I asked, walking over. "One blink, yes. Any pain?" "Two blinks, no." "Did you have lunch? I can make you something." "One blink." I went to the kitchen and made her a protein shake. Blended it smooth the way she likes. Brought it back with a straw. Fed her slowly, wiping her mouth between sips. All the while thinking your blood type is A positive. My wife's blood is O negative. You are not her. "Let me adjust your pillows," I said. "You look uncomfortable." I lifted her shoulders, gently rearranged the pillows behind her back, lowered her down carefully. My hands touched her skin. Warm, real, human. But not my wife. How do you act normal when you know? How do you adjust pillows and ask about pain and smile when you're touching someone wearing your wife's face like a mask? I sat down in the chair beside her bed. 3 o'clock in the afternoon, light coming through the window. Normal domestic scene. "Do you remember," I said casually, "that night we were stuck in Galveston? Must have been about 10 years ago. The rain was so heavy we could barely see the road." I watched her eyes. "Our car broke down on the Seawall Boulevard. We had to call AAA. Waited 2 hours in that parking lot. No reaction, just listening, same way she always listened. We finally got to that restaurant by the water," I continued. "You were starving. We ordered lobster, big ones. I can still remember the taste. That was a good night, wasn't it?" I paused. "Do you remember?" 2 seconds of silence. I counted them. 1, 2. Then she blinked once. "Yes, I remember." I smiled, nodded, reached out and squeezed her hand. "I thought you'd remember," I said. "That was special." Inside, I was screaming. Shelby has been severely allergic to shellfish since 2009. Developed it suddenly after our anniversary trip to Maine. Lobster, crab, shrimp, any of it sends her into anaphylactic shock within minutes. She carries an EpiPen in her purse. Won't eat at seafood restaurants. Won't even walk past the fish counter at the grocery store because the smell makes her anxious. That night in Galveston, we didn't eat lobster. We ate tilapia at a roadside diner called Pete's. She ordered it grilled with no seasoning because she was worried about cross-contamination. The woman in this bed just agreed to a memory that never happened. 100% confirmation. "I'm going to make dinner," I said, standing up. "Chicken okay?" 1 blink. I went upstairs to my bedroom and sat on the edge of the bed with my head in my hands. Tuesday morning, 3:12 a.m. I was lying awake staring at the ceiling when I heard it. Knock, knock, knock. Pause. Knock, knock, knock. I sat up. This time I didn't dismiss it. Didn't tell myself it was pipes or mice or the heating system. I listened. 3 knocks, 2-second pause, 3 knocks, 2-second pause. Regular as a heartbeat, deliberate as a message. I got out of bed and walked to the hallway. The knocking was louder here, coming from below, from the basement. 3 knocks, pause, 3 knocks, pause. Not random, not mechanical. Someone down there was making that sound on purpose, someone who knew I was listening. I walked downstairs in the dark. The house was silent except for that rhythm. Knock, knock, knock. I reached the basement door, put my hand on the knob, locked like always. I pressed my ear against the wood and held my breath. Silence. Complete silence. Like whoever was down there heard me coming and stopped to listen. I stood there for 30 seconds, nothing. Then I took a breath and knocked, 3 times, deliberately. Tap, tap, tap. The silence lasted exactly 3 seconds. Then the answer came back. Tap, tap, tap. Same rhythm, same spacing, from directly below me. I knocked twice. 2 knocks came back. I knocked 4 times. 4 knocks came back. Not a pipe, not a mouse, not the house settling. Someone in my basement was alive, conscious, and deliberately responding to my signal. I knocked 3 times again, slow, clear. 3 knocks came back immediately. I stood there in the dark hallway with my hand on that locked door and felt something break open in my chest. Not quite hope, not quite horror, something in between. My wife. My real wife. The woman with O-negative blood and a shellfish allergy and a $6.5 million secret investment portfolio. The woman who survived a truck hitting her at 40 miles an hour. She was down there. She'd been down there for months, knocking, signaling, trying to reach me while I slept 20 feet above her with her sister in the guest room and her replacement in the living room. I knocked 3 more times. 3 knocks came back. I pressed my forehead against the door and whispered, "I know you're there. I'm coming. Just hold on." No response, just silence. Then after 10 seconds, 3 soft knocks. She heard me. I went back upstairs and sat on my bed until sunrise, thinking about locked doors and blood types and women who look identical but aren't. Thinking about basement knocking that followed a pattern because my wife was down there teaching me a code. and I'd been too stupid to understand it until now. She was alive down there, responding to my knocks. I had to get her out. But first I had to understand what I was dealing with. I came downstairs Wednesday morning planning to act normal for another day, and Yolanda smiled at me from her hospital bed and said she'd hired someone to fix the noises. I'd been hearing noises I hadn't mentioned to her in 5 days. "Good morning," she said, voice bright and cheerful. "I have good news. I hired a plumber to come look at those noises. He'll be here at 9. I stopped halfway to the kitchen. "What noises?" "The ones from the basement. I know it's been bothering you. I can see it in your face. I want you to stop worrying." I hadn't mentioned the basement since Monday morning when she'd dismissed it as mice. 5 days ago. I'd tested the knocking at 3 in the morning, gotten responses, confirmed someone was down there, but I hadn't said a word to her about it. So how did she know I was still concerned? "You didn't have to do that," I said carefully. I'm sure it's nothing." "I want to help. You do so much for me." I smiled, nodded, walked to the kitchen, and made coffee with hands that wanted to shake. 9 o'clock. The doorbell rang. Frank Hooper stood on the porch in his 50s with a Houston Plumbing Services patch on his shirt and a tool belt that looked well used. He had the kind of confident smile that comes from being paid to say exactly what the customer wants to hear. "Morning. I'm here about the noise complaint," Yolanda explained from her bed. "The noises, the knocking, how worried I'd been." Frank nodded knowingly. "Old houses settle, make all kinds of sounds. I'll take a look." "The key is right here," Yolanda said, gesturing to the nightstand. She had a basement key on the nightstand, right there in plain sight. Frank took the key, walked to the basement door, unlocked it, disappeared down the stairs. I sat in the chair beside Yolanda's bed and waited. 20 minutes. 20 minutes. I sat in my living room making small talk with a woman wearing my wife's face while a stranger walked around the basement where my real wife was imprisoned. Footsteps below us, metal clanging, tools scraping. I couldn't follow without raising suspicion, couldn't ask what he was seeing. I just had to sit there and wait and pretend I wasn't screaming inside. "How have you been feeling today?" I asked. 1 blink. "Good." "Any pain?" 2 blinks. "No." Below us, something heavy scraped across concrete. At 9:25, Frank came back up carrying a section of white PVC pipe about 2 feet long. Some corrosion on the outside, a loose fitting on one end. "Found your problem," he said, holding up the pipe. "These old PVC pipes expand and contract with pressure changes. Temperature drops at night, pipes vibrate against the mounting brackets. Makes knocking sounds." He set the pipe on the coffee table. "I replaced the worst section, tightened all the fittings. Should be quieter now. Houses near the water table get this all the time. Nothing unusual." He handed me an invoice, $240, professional handshake, confident smile. "You folks have a good day?" I stared at the pipe on the table. Yolanda looked at me with manufactured concern. "See, it was just the pipes. You've been too stressed, sweetheart. You're hearing things that aren't there, worrying too much." I picked up the pipe. The corrosion was real. The loose fitting was real. This was an actual pipe from an actual basement, just probably not from the area where my wife is locked away. "Maybe you need a break," Yolanda continued. "This caregiving, it's exhausting you, making you imagine things." I set the pipe down. "You're right. I've been pushing myself too hard. Thanks for taking care of this." "I love you," she said. "I want you to be okay." "I know." I went upstairs to my office and closed the door. Monday morning I asked her about the basement noise. She said mice. I didn't bring it up again. Tuesday at 3 in the morning I went to the basement door. Knocked. Got responses. Reciprocal communication. I didn't tell her about that, didn't mention it, didn't say a word. Wednesday morning she announces she's hired a plumber to fix the noise I'm supposedly still worried about. How did she know? She knows I'm suspicious. And she just showed me she's prepared for everything. The plumber, the pipe, the concerned performance. All of it rehearsed. All of it designed to make me think I'm losing my mind. Cameras. Has to be cameras. Hidden somewhere in this house, maybe in the hallway, maybe in my bedroom, maybe in the living room where I sit and feed her. She saw me at the basement door at 3 in the morning, saw me press my ear to the wood, saw me knock, saw me wait for responses. Then she called a plumber first thing in the morning to get ahead of it, to control the narrative, to gaslight me before I could ask more questions. I stood up and walked to the window, looked down at the driveway where Frank Hooper's van was pulling away. Every room in this house could be monitored. Every conversation, every movement, every expression on my face when I think I'm alone. I'm not investigating her in secret. She's watching me investigate her. Every step I take, she's already seen it. Every question I want to ask, she's already prepared the answer. Every doubt that crosses my face, she's already planning how to explain it away. I went back downstairs, smiled at her, asked if she needed anything, adjusted her pillows, played the devoted husband, all while knowing that somewhere in this house a camera was recording every second. And she was watching, studying, calculating her next move. I'm not playing chess with someone who's ahead. I'm playing chess with someone who placed all the pieces before the game even started. If she was watching everything I did at home, I needed help from somewhere she couldn't see. Somewhere outside her surveillance. Somewhere I could speak the truth out loud without cameras recording it. Friday morning, I sat in my car outside a midtown office building with Nettie's medical records in a manila envelope, knowing that asking for help meant trusting someone when trust had become the one thing I couldn't afford. I'd found him online. Clyde Shelton Private Investigations. Small website, basic design, discreet confidential results-oriented, office address in Midtown Houston, reasonable rates. Nothing flashy, nothing that screamed scam or amateur. Just a man with an office who promised to find truth for money. I got out of the car and walked into the building. Elevator to the 3rd floor. Door at the end of the hall with his name on frosted glass. I knocked. "Come in." The office was small. Battered metal desk, 2 chairs, water-stained ceiling tiles, a plastic ficus tree in the corner that had never been alive. Clyde Shelton sat behind the desk, 44 years old, with the kind of steady eyes that had seen things and the kind of calm that comes from knowing how to handle them. "Mr. Emerson," he asked. I'd called ahead. Made an appointment under my real name because lying at this point felt pointless. "Yes." "Sit down. Tell me what you need." I sat, opened the manila envelope, pulled out photos of Shelby and Yolanda at their father's funeral. Identical faces, different expressions. "I need you to investigate whether my wife is actually my wife." He didn't blink, didn't react, just looked at the photos. "Go on." "My wife was in a car accident in March. Paralyzed. Her twin sister moved in to help with care. They look identical. Same height, same hair, same everything. But I think..." I stopped. "I think my wife's sister is impersonating her. I think my real wife is somewhere else, or dead, and the woman in my house is pretending to be her." I laid out the medical records, pointed to the blood type discrepancy. O negative versus A positive, same patient name, 2 different people. Clyde studied the documents carefully. "This is good evidence," he said. "What else do you have?" I told him about the $6.5 million secret account, the inheritance worth $12 million, the sister who got nothing, the voice switch I heard on the phone, the lobster memory test she failed. He took notes, asked questions. Trust is a strange currency. 2 weeks ago, I'd have trusted my wife, my sister-in-law, my flying partner of 15 years. Now I'm sitting in a stranger's office with a fake tree, hoping he's the one person who won't betray me. "This estate lawyer," Clyde said, looking up from his notes. "Russell Caldwell, how long has he managed your wife's family assets?" I blinked. "I don't know, since her father died, I think. Why?" "And the $6.5 million account, was it held domestically or offshore? Any recent large transfers?" The questions were specific. Too specific. Most private investigators would ask about surveillance, about proof of identity, about how to catch her in a lie. This man was asking about financial structures and estate lawyers like he already knew something. "I don't know," I said. "The statement just showed holdings, stocks, bonds, cryptocurrency." "I'll need 48 hours, he said. "This kind of investigation requires specific contacts, people who can access records you can't, but I can get you answers." He stood, shook my hand. "Don't do anything at home, don't confront her, don't let on that you suspect anything, just act normal until I call you." "I've been acting normal for 10 days. "Keep acting, 48 hours. I walked out of his office with the same envelope I'd walked in with, and the feeling that I'd just told my story to someone who already knew half of it. Saturday afternoon, I couldn't ask these questions at home. Couldn't have this conversation where cameras might be watching. I walked next door to Lorraine Wolf's townhouse and knocked. She opened the door in a cardigan, looking surprised to see me. "Forrest, is everything all right? Can I come in? I need to ask you something." "Of course." Her living room smelled like ginger tea. Family photos on the mantle. Warm lamps. Normal life. "Lorraine, I need to ask you directly. The knocking sounds from my basement. How often have you heard them?" She looked at me for a long moment. Then she nodded slowly. "I've been wondering when you'd ask," she said. "Come in. Sit down." She went to her desk in the corner, opened a drawer, came back with a small spiral notebook. "I started keeping track," she said, handing it to me, "in case it mattered someday." I opened the notebook. Dated entries, handwritten, neat columns. April 23rd, 2024, 2:47 a.m. Rhythmic knocking through shared wall, 3 beats, pause, repeat, 15 minutes. April 29th, 2024, 3:12 a.m. Same pattern, 3 knocks, pause, 22 minutes. May 6th, 2024, 2:33 a.m. Knocking resumed, same rhythm. I flipped through the pages. Entry after entry, dated, timed, documented. 47 entries total, from April through December. April 23rd, that's the first entry, 2 months after the accident, 6 months before I finally heard it myself. All after 2 in the morning, Lorraine said quietly. Always the same pattern. 3 knocks, pause, 3 knocks. I thought maybe I didn't know what to think, but I wrote it down. Did you ever? I stopped. Do you think there's someone down there in my basement? She looked at me with the kind of sadness that comes from knowing a terrible answer. Yes, she said. I think someone's been trying to get your attention for a very long time. I held the notebook. 47 dated entries, 6 months of signals. April. That was 2 months after the accident. 1 month after Shelby came home from the hospital. My wife had been in that basement since the beginning, knocking, signaling, trying to reach me. And I'd been flying to Tokyo to Sydney to Seoul, sleeping upstairs 30 feet away from her, bathing her replacement, feeding her replacement, talking to her replacement about our memories. 47 times she'd called for help, and I'd never heard once. 47 times she'd called for help, and I'd been too far away or too asleep or too stupid to hear. Now I had to stop pretending I didn't know and start doing something about it. The Wells Fargo envelope came Friday morning while I was feeding her replacement oatmeal, and I opened it standing at the kitchen counter, thinking it was routine mortgage paperwork, until I read the word foreclosure, and everything went very quiet. Notice of foreclosure, property 2847 Montrose Boulevard, Houston, Texas. Outstanding balance $3 million, days overdue 45. I stopped moving, spoon of oatmeal in my hand, letter in the other. $3 million. Everything okay in there? Yolanda called from the living room. I looked at the letter again. Borrower Shelby Emerson. Power of attorney granted to third party. Loan originated September 2024. Funds dispersed to offshore account ending in 8472. She'd taken out a $3 million loan against my $4.2 million house. Fine, I called back. Just the mortgage company, nothing important. I set the spoon down carefully, walked to the living room, smiled at her, asked if she needed anything. She blinked no. I nodded and walked back to the kitchen. Read the letter a third time. Power of attorney granted. That means someone signed documents on Shelby's behalf. Someone with legal authority to use her identity. Someone who could forge her signature and have it accepted by a bank. September, 4 months ago, right around when Nettie the nurse was paid to leave quietly. The money went offshore. Account number partially redacted, but I didn't need the full number to know it wasn't going to anything legitimate. 45 days overdue. That means they'd already started the foreclosure process. In another 90 days, maybe less, the bank would auction the house. Everything gone. I waited until I heard Yolanda's breathing slow into her mid-morning nap. Then I went back to the kitchen and sat on the floor with my back against the cabinet. First tears in 8 months. Not sadness, pure rage, hot and clean. 47 times she knocked. 6.5 million she hid. 12 million she inherited. 3 million she stole. I sat there doing math like numbers could make sense of this when nothing made sense anymore. She wasn't just stealing my wife's identity, she was systematically dismantling our entire financial life while my real wife was imprisoned 15 feet below me in the basement. I wiped my eyes, stood up, folded the letter and put it in my pocket. Friday afternoon, I drove downtown to Russell Caldwell's office. Glass tower, 30th floor, law firm name in silver letters across the reception desk. Russell Caldwell, 58, senior partner, estate planning and probate. He'd managed Shelby's father's will, distributed the $12 million, handled the legal paperwork when Shelby inherited everything. The receptionist led me to his office. Mahogany desk, leather chairs, windows overlooking downtown Houston, silver cufflinks, 20 years of successful practice on the wall and framed diplomas. He stood when I entered, professional smile, firm handshake. Mr. Emerson, good to see you. Please sit down. I sat, pulled out the foreclosure notice, slid it across his desk. I need to understand how this power of attorney was authorized, I said. You manage my wife's estate. You would have been involved in any POA documentation. He picked up the letter. His eyes moved across the page. Then something flashed in his face. Just for a second. Something that looked a lot like guilt before the professional mask came back. Let me check the records, he said. This will take a few minutes. He stood, walked to the door. Please have a seat. Make yourself comfortable. I'll pull the relevant documents. He disappeared into the back office. I sat there for 15 minutes. Through the door, I saw him once peeking out, checking if I was still there. He came back with a folder, set it on the desk, opened it, looked at pages I couldn't see. This is more complex than I realized, he said. The estate documentation, there are layers here I need to verify. I'll need 2 more days to give you a complete answer. 2 days. Yes, I want to make sure I have all the facts before I explain anything. The last thing I want is to give you incorrect information. He smiled, professional, reassuring, concerned. I'll call you Monday. We'll sort this out. I stood, shook his hand, walked to the door. Thank you for your time. I stepped into the hallway, closed the door behind me, started walking toward the elevator. Then I stopped, turned around, walked back quietly, stood outside his door. The moment I stepped into the hallway, I heard his voice through the door, not checking records, not verifying documents, warning someone that I was asking questions. His voice was low, urgent, whispered. He knows. He's asking about the POA. You need to. I couldn't hear the rest. Didn't need to. I walked to the elevator, got in, rode down 30 floors. Sat in my car in the parking garage for 20 minutes. The attorney I'd trusted to manage my wife's father's estate, the man who'd written the will that left everything to Shelby, the professional who'd handled $12 million in assets with perfect legal precision. He'd called someone the second I left his office. Not a clerk, not a paralegal, not someone to pull records. A warning call. Hurried, whispered, urgent. He's part of it. The lawyer isn't neutral. He's not being manipulated or fooled or used. He's actively involved in whatever this is. Which means this isn't just Yolanda impersonating Shelby and stealing money. This is organized, professional, multiple people with specific roles. A conspiracy. And if the lawyer managing a $12 million estate is involved, if he's making warning calls the minute someone asks questions, then this goes deeper than one woman in one basement. I started the car and drove home. Parked in the driveway, looked at my house, my $4.2 million house with a $3 million fraudulent loan and 45 days until foreclosure. My house where my wife was imprisoned in the basement and her sister was lying in the living room pretending to be paralyzed. My house that might not be my house much longer. I walked inside, smiled at Yolanda, asked if she needed dinner. She blinked yes. I made her soup, fed her carefully, wiped her mouth, adjusted her pillows, all while thinking about a lawyer in a glass tower making phone calls to people I didn't know about crimes I was just beginning to understand. The lawyer was part of it, which meant this wasn't random fraud. This was organized crime with professionals managing every piece. Clyde Shelton called Saturday evening while I was pretending to watch TV with a woman who wasn't my wife and said we needed to meet tonight, his voice carrying the kind of urgency that meant everything was about to change. We need to meet, he said. Can't wait for the 48 hours. There's something you need to know now.
When?
8 o'clock, cafe on Westheimer corner of Montrose, dark booth and back, come alone. I told Yolanda I was going for a drive. Needed to clear my head. She blinked once. Understanding. Concerned sister, caring about stressed brother-in-law. I got in my car and drove to Montrose. The cafe was exactly what he'd described. Dark. Corner booth. Empty at 8 on a Saturday night except for one waitress and Clyde sitting in the back with 2 cups of coffee already on the table. I slid into the booth across from him. What couldn't wait? I asked. He looked at me for a long moment, then he leaned forward. I need to tell you the truth. I'm not a private detective. I waited. I'm FBI, special agent. I've been investigating Russell Caldwell for 14 months. The cafe was very quiet. Money laundering, he continued, through his estate law practice. He's been moving millions offshore through fraudulent trusts, fake probate cases, forged powers of attorney. We've been building a federal case against him and his network since October last year. Why didn't you tell me this when I came to your office? Because I didn't know if you were involved, didn't know if you were part of it or a victim. When you walked in talking about your wife's twin sister and blood type mismatches, I knew you were the missing piece. He pushed one of the coffee cups toward me. Your case, your wife's sister impersonating her, the fraud, the offshore accounts, it's not separate from Caldwell's operation. It's the same network. Personal identity theft linked to professional money laundering. That's what we've been missing. Proof of how the personal fraud connects to the financial structures. 14 months. While I was flying to Tokyo and bathing an impostor and hearing knocks I couldn't explain, federal agents were building a case. I wasn't alone. I'd been alone for 8 months, but I wasn't alone anymore. What do you need from me? I asked. Everything. All your evidence. Medical records, bank statements, the foreclosure notice photos of the twins. You give me that, I give you federal protection, expedited warrants, a team that can move fast. How fast? 5 to 7 days to coordinate, maybe less if we push. I looked at him across the table. Are you really FBI or are you still lying to me? He reached into his jacket. I tensed. He pulled out a badge, set it on the table between us. Yellow shield, 3 letters, FBI, Federal Bureau of Investigation. His photo, his name, Clyde Shelton, Special Agent. Real. Federal, he said. This investigation has been federal from the start, and now you're part of it. I picked up the badge, felt the weight of it, handed it back. My wife is in that basement, I said. She's been there since April, maybe longer. I need her out. I know. 5 to 7 days might be too long. I know that too. But if we move without proper warrants, without coordination, we risk the whole case. Caldwell walks, your sister-in-law walks, everyone walks, and your wife stays in that basement. He leaned forward. 5 days. Give me 5 days to do this right. Then we get everyone. The lawyer, the sister, everyone involved, and we get your wife out alive. I drove home at 9:30, parked in the driveway, sat there for 20 minutes. FBI, federal investigation, warrants, teams, resources I couldn't access alone. But 5 to 7 days. I went inside, smiled at Yolanda, told her the drive helped. She blinked twice for good, glad you're feeling better. I went upstairs and lay in bed staring at the ceiling. 3:22 in the morning, I gave up on sleep. Went downstairs in the dark, walked to the basement door, listened, silence. I knocked 3 times, deliberate, clear, waited in the darkness. 3 knocks came back, but weaker, fainter, not the strong, desperate rhythm from last week. These were tired knocks, fading knocks. I pressed my hand flat against the door. "Honey," I whispered, "I know you're there. I'm working with the FBI now. Just a few more days. Can you hold on? Can you stay strong for me?" Silence. I waited. Then 2 small knocks. Tap, tap. Not 3. 2. 2 knocks. Not 3. She couldn't manage the third. Last week she knocked back everything I gave her strong, responsive fighting. Tonight she's fading. I stayed at that door until 4 in the morning with my forehead pressed against the wood, thinking about federal investigations and warrant timelines and coordination protocols, thinking about a woman who'd been imprisoned in a basement for 8 months, surviving on whatever food and water they gave her when they remembered, thinking about knocks that used to be strong turning into knocks that barely registered. Last week when I knocked 3 times, she knocked back 3 times. Clear, desperate, alive. Tonight I knocked 3 times and got 2 faint taps. She's dying down there. The FBI says they need 5 to 7 days to build the case, get the warrants, coordinate the raid with multiple agencies so nothing falls apart in court. 5 to 7 days of careful planning so we get convictions, so nobody walks on technicalities, so justice actually happens. I understand that. I respect that. I'm a pilot. I know about checklists and protocols and not rushing critical procedures. But my wife doesn't have 5 days. I told Clyde about the weak knocks, about how she's fading. He said we'd move as fast as legally possible. Then he told me to meet him Sunday afternoon at the FBI field office because there were things I needed to understand about why this happened. The folder Clyde slides across the desk is thick bank records, wire transfer logs, forensic accounting spreadsheets. We're in a conference room on the 8th floor of the FBI Houston field office, fluorescent lights humming overhead, and my mouth is dry from 3 hours of briefing without a water break. "Your wife's $6.5 million account," Clyde says. "That's the real target. The $12 million inheritance was just the opening act." He spreads documents across the table. "Let me show you the math your sister-in-law was doing. $12 million from the father's estate, $6.5 million in the secret fidelity account, $4.2 million in house equity, $8 million in life insurance if your wife dies. That's over $30 million. I stare at the numbers. $30.7 million, Clyde says. "To be exact, that's what she was after. Not 12, not 18, all of it." He pulls out a wire transfer document, highlights a line. 3 weeks after the accident, someone accessed the Fidelity account using a forged power of attorney, transferred $1.2 million to an offshore account in Grand Cayman. Our forensic accountant traced it. $1.2 million, I repeat. That's all she could get. Your wife set up 2-factor authentication on the account. Fingerprint and retinal scan required for transfers over $2 million. Smart woman. She built that portfolio in secret and protected it like a vault. He shows me another document, Fidelity security logs. "Your sister-in-law has tried 17 times since June to access the full account. Blocked every time. She can't get past the biometric authentication. She needs your real wife's fingerprint and retinal scan." I look up at him. "That's why she's alive," I say slowly. "That's why Shelby's in the basement instead of dead. Yolanda needs her biometrics." "Yes. Wait." I stand up. "If she needs Shelby alive for the biometrics, why is my wife getting weaker? What happens after she gets the scans?" Clyde doesn't answer immediately. Then he says quietly, "Once she has what she needs, your wife becomes a liability instead of an asset." I sit back down. "How long have you known this?" "We've been tracking the Fidelity account attempts for 3 months. We didn't know about the basement until you told me. We didn't know about the identity swap until you brought me the medical records." He pulls out another document from the evidence box. This one looks old, creased, photocopied. "Last will and testament," he reads, dated May 14th, 2024. "I, Shelby Vincent Emerson, being of sound mind, do hereby bequeath my entire estate to my loving sister, Yolanda Marie Vincent." I take the document, look at the date. May 14th, I say. "That's 7 months before the accident," Clyde finishes. "Your wife's car was hit March 22nd, 2024. This will was forged 7 months earlier." He lays out more documents, phone records, meeting logs, bank statements. Handwriting analysis confirms Yolanda forged the signature. The notary who witnessed it, Perry Barton, same man who showed up at the hospital claiming to be your wife's doctor. He's not a doctor. He's a notary public who lost his license in 2021 for fraud. Clyde pulls out Russell Caldwell's office calendar, highlighted entries. Your estate lawyer met with Yolanda 3 times in summer 2024, June 7th, July 15th, August 2nd. Office notes say, estate planning consultation for client's sister. He shows me phone records. Your co-pilot Basil Pierce, Yolanda called him 6 times between June and August 2024, before the accident, before anyone was paralyzed, before there was any reason for your wife's sister to be calling your flying partner. I look at the timeline spreading across the table. May forged will. June through August, recruiting accomplices, meeting with lawyer, calling my co-pilot. March 22nd accident. The accident wasn't the cause, I say. It was the trigger. Exactly. Clyde leans back in his chair. They didn't scramble after a tragedy and see an opportunity. They built this conspiracy for months, forged documents, recruited help, set up offshore accounts, established backup identities. Then they waited. Waited for what? For an accident. Any accident. Didn't matter if it was a car crash or a fall downstairs or food poisoning. They just needed your wife incapacitated enough to make the switch. And when that truck ran the red light at Westheimer and Post Oak, they finally got their trigger event. I stand up, walk to the window, look down at downtown Houston 8 floors below. My co-pilot knew, I say. Basil knew months in advance. Every time I flew with him after the accident, every time I told him I was worried, every time I mentioned something felt wrong, he was reporting back to her. Most likely, yes. The lawyer knew, the fake doctor knew. How many people were part of this? We've identified 7 so far. Could be more. 7 people. 7 people who spent summer 2024 planning how to erase my wife and steal everything she had. While I flew to Tokyo and Seoul. While Shelby cooked dinner and managed her secret $6.5 million portfolio and had no idea her twin sister was building a machine designed to destroy her life. The conspiracy wasn't a reaction to tragedy, I say, still looking out the window. It was a loaded gun, and they just waited for someone to pull the trigger. That's exactly what it was. I turn around. How do we stop it? Carefully, Clyde says. We move carefully, we build the case right, and we make sure every single person involved goes to prison. We move sloppy, somebody walks, and then your wife died for nothing. She's not dead yet. No, she's not, which is why we have to move fast and careful at the same time. I look at the documents spread across the table. May through August 2024, meetings, phone calls, forged wills, recruited accomplices. All of it happening while I flew passengers across oceans and Shelby cooked dinners in our kitchen, and neither of us knew that her sister was assembling the pieces of our destruction. They just needed an accident. Any accident. And on March 22nd, 2024 at Westheimer and Post Oak, they got one. When I walk into the kitchen at 6:47 p.m., Yolanda is standing at the stove cooking teriyaki beef. My favorite dish, the one Shelby made every Sunday for 12 years and nobody ever taught her that. The smell hits me first. Ginger, garlic, sesame oil. The exact proportions Shelby always used, the recipe she said her grandmother passed down. I freeze in the doorway watching this woman who looks identical to my wife move around our kitchen like she's been doing this for years. You're home early, she says without turning around. She's wearing Shelby's apron, the one with the faded sunflower pattern. I wanted to surprise you. My throat tightens. How did you know teriyaki beef is my favorite? She glances over her shoulder, and there's something in her eyes I haven't seen before. Something softer than the calculated efficiency she's shown for the past 8 months. Shelby told me, years ago when we were still speaking. She said it was the first meal she ever cooked for you. The lie is smooth practiced, but I know the truth. Shelby and Yolanda haven't spoken in over 20 years. This woman learned my preferences some other way. Maybe she's been watching us longer than I realized. Maybe she studied every detail of our marriage before she ever stepped into it. She plates the food with careful precision, sets it on the table beside a glass of red wine. Sit down, Forrest. You've had a long day. I sit because standing feels dangerous right now. Every instinct screaming that this intimacy is wrong, but my body too exhausted to fight it. I've been thinking, she says, settling into the chair across from me. Not Shelby's usual seat, she's chosen mine, forcing me to sit where my wife used to sit. About us. About what happens after all this is over. After what's over, the recovery process. She reaches across the table, her hand covering mine. Her skin is warm, her touch deliberate. You've been so patient with me, Forrest. So kind. I know I'm not the same person I was before the accident, but maybe that's not entirely a bad thing. The words land like ice water. She's not pretending to be recovering Shelby anymore. She's positioning herself as the better version, the upgrade. I think we could be happy together, she continues. Really happy, without all the old baggage, all the arguments about money and my mother and whether we should have had kids. We could start fresh. I pull my hand back slowly, trying to keep my face neutral. Shelby and I never argued about having kids. Something flickers across her expression, irritation maybe, or fear that she's revealed too much. Of course not. I'm just confused. The medication. But the damage is done. She's shown me what she wants. Not just the money, not just the assets. She wants my life, my marriage. She wants to erase Shelby completely and take her place permanently. My phone buzzes in my pocket. I pull it out, grateful for the interruption. Agent Shelton's name on the screen. I need to take this, I say, standing up. Now dinner's getting cold. It's important. I walk out to the garage, close the door behind me. Agent Shelton? Mr. Emerson, we've made progress on the financial trail. His voice is tight with urgency. Basil Pierce received a wire transfer of $200,000 on March 20th, 2 days before your accident. The garage tilts. I grip the workbench to steady myself. That's not possible. The transfer originated from an offshore account linked to your wife's sister. We're still tracing the full network, but the timing is clear. Pierce was paid in advance. Basil and I have been flying together for 15 years. My voice sounds distant, like it belongs to someone else. He was at my wedding. He's godfather to my nephew. I know this is difficult, Shelton says, but the evidence is conclusive. Pierce made 6 phone calls to a burner number registered to Yolanda Vincent between June and August of last year. The recruitment happened months before the accident. I think about every flight we've taken together, every pre-flight check where Basil stood beside me, every landing where I trusted him with my life, every beer we shared after long hauls, every Christmas bonus I fought to get him. $200,000. That's what 15 years of friendship cost. Less than 0.7% of the total assets Yolanda was after. I know what you're thinking. How could someone I trusted for 15 years do this to me? Still watching good. Comment the name of one person you'd trust with your life right now. Because I'm about to find out my co-pilot sold me out for $200,000, and if that doesn't make you question everything, nothing will. I'm still putting pieces together. Let's keep going. Mr. Emerson, are you still there? Yeah, I force the word out. What happens now? We bring him in for questioning, but I need you to stay calm, maintain your routine. If Yolanda suspects we're closing in, she might accelerate her timeline. Accelerate to what? We don't know yet. That's what worries me. He hangs up. I stand in the garage for 10 minutes, maybe 20, staring at the wall where Basil and I mounted our vintage propeller last summer. He'd found it at an estate sale, insisted we hang it together. Spent 4 hours getting the angle perfect. I didn't know whether to cry or be angry, so I sat in that parking lot and did nothing. Clyde draws 3 circles on the FBI whiteboard, Yolanda Vincent Russell Caldwell Perry Barton, and connects them with red lines labeled 72 hours. Simultaneous capture, he says, tapping each circle with the marker. Wednesday morning, 6 a.m., we hit all 3 at once. Sister at home, Caldwell at his office, Barton at the clinic. No warning chain, no time for anyone to destroy evidence or run. I'm sitting in the conference room at Houston Field office, surrounded by agents I don't know, staring at my wife's name written in blue marker beside her sister's. They're planning a tactical operation like it's a hostage rescue, and the hostage is the woman who's been sleeping 20 feet below me for 9 months. What about Shelby? My voice cuts through the briefing. When does she get out? Extraction team goes in first, Clyde says. No, I stand up. My wife gets out first. Before you touch anyone else, you get Shelby out of that basement. You pull her to safety, get her medical attention, and only then do you arrest anyone. That's the condition. Clyde sets down the marker, studies me for a long moment, then nods. Extraction first. Medical team on standby. Your wife is priority 1. He slides a folder across the table. Your colleague Pierce cooperated fully. Gave us everything. Call logs, wire transfers, meeting dates, voice recordings. He's taking an immunity deal. The words hit like turbulence at 30,000 feet. Immunity. Full cooperation in exchange for no charges. He'll testify against all 3 conspirators. Without his evidence, we'd need 6 months of surveillance to build this case. His information saves your wife's life. I think about Basil sitting in some other conference room, probably in this same building, trading 15 years of friendship for a get-out-of-jail card, saving his own skin by burning everyone else, and somehow accidentally saving Shelby in the process. 15 years of friendship, I say quietly, and now he gets a free pass while his family loses everything. His wife filed for divorce yesterday, Clyde says. His airline suspended him pending investigation. He'll never fly commercially again. And he has to live with knowing he helped bury your wife alive for $200,000. I wouldn't call that a free pass. I look at the red lines on the whiteboard connecting Basil's name to Yolanda's, to the burner phone, to the March 20th wire transfer. Evidence that would have taken months to collect. Evidence that accelerated the rescue timeline from someday to Wednesday morning. Doesn't make me hate him less, I say. Didn't expect it would, Clyde replies. The briefing continues. Tactical entry points, medical protocols, evidence preservation, floor plans of Russell Caldwell's law office, Perry Barton's clinic, a warrant signed by a federal judge. The details blur together until Clyde is shaking my hand, telling me to go home and act normal. Act normal, sit across the dinner table from Yolanda tonight and tomorrow night smiling like I don't know she's a murderer. Like I didn't spend yesterday listening to her talk about our future together while Shelby was dying in the basement. How do you thank someone for saving your wife's life when you can't forgive them for endangering it? How do you process the fact that betrayal and redemption can be the same action? I don't have answers. I just have 48 hours to hold myself together. I drive home at 6 p.m. The house is dark except for the kitchen light. Yolanda is out probably meeting with Russell to discuss their next move. I should eat something. Should sleep. Should prepare for Wednesday morning. Instead, I wait. At 2 a.m. I walk to the basement door. The hallway is dark silent except for the hum of the refrigerator in the kitchen. I sit down with my back against the door, the same position I've taken a dozen times over the past 2 weeks. The wood is cool against my shoulders. The air smells faintly of coffee grounds from the kitchen trash. "Honey," I whisper, "I know you're there. 2 more days. Can you hold on 2 more days?" Silence, then one knock from below, faint but deliberate. My throat tightens. When I fly the Pacific at night, I look down at the black water and I think about you. Every single flight, mile after mile of darkness and ocean, and I think about coming home. About walking through the door and you'd be there making coffee, reading on the couch. Every flight, Shelby. You're what I think about. Long silence. I close my eyes, press my palm flat against the door. "We're going to be all right," I whisper. "I promise. Wednesday morning. Just hold on." The silence stretches so long, I think maybe she can't respond. Maybe she's too weak. Maybe I'm too late, and these past 2 weeks of planning don't matter because 3 knocks. Not the desperate hammering from 2 weeks ago. Not the frantic plea for rescue. These knocks are slow, regular, steady. 3 knocks, like a heartbeat. Like I'm here, like I trust you, like I'm not giving up. I sit there with my back against the door, listening to the silence, feeling the vibration of those 3 knocks still resonating through the wood. The clock on the wall ticks past 3 a.m., past 4. The sky outside the hallway window starts to shift from black to deep blue, that pre-dawn color that comes right before sunrise on long international flights. 48 hours until the raid. 2 more days of sitting at dinner tables with the woman who buried my wife alive, smiling like I didn't know. 2 more days of listening to Yolanda talk about our future while Shelby counted down her last hours in the dark. The 3 knocks came slow and regular like heartbeats. Not desperate, not frantic, just steady proof she was alive and listening. I sat on that hallway floor with my back against the basement door until 4 a.m. Couldn't sleep, didn't need to. Wednesday morning, 6 a.m., 48 hours. At 5:32 a.m., I hear Yolanda's bedroom door close. Too quiet, too careful. And through the crack under my door, I see the blue glow of a screen lighting the hallway. I lie still in bed listening. The house is silent except for the faint hum of the heating system and the soft tap of her footsteps on hardwood. She's not going downstairs. She's standing in the hallway just outside my door. The blue glow shifts, moves, phone or tablet. At 5:32 in the morning, standing in the hallway staring at a screen. I count to 60. The glow doesn't move. Whatever she's watching, it's holding her attention. When I finally hear her bedroom door close again, softer this time, like she's trying not to wake me, I get up and check the hallway. Empty. No sign she was ever there, except for the faint smell of her perfume, the same scent Shelby used to wear. I shower, dress, go downstairs at my usual 6:15 a.m. The coffee maker is already brewing. Yolanda is at the stove making scrambled eggs, still wearing her bathrobe. When she turns to look at me, her eyes are different. Not angry, not suspicious. Something colder than that. Controlled fear. The look of an animal that knows it's cornered but hasn't decided whether to run or attack. "Did you sleep well?" she asks. "Fine. You?" "Fine." Both of us lying, both of us aware we're lying. She sets a plate in front of me, eggs, toast, orange juice, my usual breakfast. "Coffee's fresh. I made your favorite." "Thank you." We sit across from each other at the kitchen table. I take a bite of toast, taste nothing but char and butter. She sips her coffee, watching me over the rim of the cup. "I thought I heard something last night," she says. "Around 2 a.m. Did you get up?" The question lands like a chess move, careful, calculated, testing whether I'll admit or deny. "Old house," I say. "Pipes settle." Her smile doesn't reach her eyes. Of course, the pipes. We finish breakfast in silence. She washes the dishes. I read the newspaper or pretend to my eyes, scanning the same paragraph 4 times without absorbing a word. The kitchen smells like coffee and toast and her perfume. The refrigerator hums. The clock on the wall ticks. She knows. She saw me at the basement door. Probably has cameras I never found hidden in smoke detectors or picture frames. She watched me sit there at 2 a.m., watched me press my palm against the wood, watched me whisper to whoever was below. She couldn't hear the words, but body language tells the story. A man doesn't sit at a locked basement door at 2 a.m. talking to the pipes. And I know she knows. Which means we're both sitting here at this breakfast table drinking coffee, discussing the weather, pretending everything is normal while we both hold loaded guns under napkins. I have some errands today, she says, standing up. Grocery shopping. Maybe get my hair trimmed. Sounds good. Will you be home for dinner? Probably. I'll text you. Perfect. She walks upstairs. I hear her bedroom door close. I sit at the kitchen table for another 10 minutes listening to the silence, trying to calculate her next move. Does she run? Does she accelerate whatever final plan she has for Shelby? Does she disappear and leave the mess behind? Or does she think I don't actually know anything, that I was just checking on foundation damage or investigating a noise and she's overreacting to harmless behavior? I spend the day at the airport maintenance hangar pretending to review flight logs. My phone stays in my pocket waiting for Agent Shelton's update. Every hour that passes feels like a week. At 6:47 p.m., my phone buzzes. The message is encrypted, shows up as random characters until I open the secure app. 3 lines of text. Urgent. Caldwell apprehended IAH, Terminal D attempting international departure. Emirates EK211 to Dubai. Full cooperation secured. Timeline compressed, raid 0630 tomorrow. Confirm ready status. I read it 3 times. Russell Caldwell tried to run. Bought a one-way ticket to the United Arab Emirates no extradition treaty and almost made it to the gate before FBI grabbed him. And now facing decades in federal prison, he's cooperating, giving them everything. Bank records, email correspondence, recorded conversations with Yolanda. The coordinated plan is now compressed to 12 hours. Raid execution tomorrow morning, 6:30 a.m. I type one word, ready. When I look up from my phone, Yolanda is standing in the doorway of the living room watching me. She's changed into jeans and a sweater, Shelby's clothes, Shelby's style, and her hair is down around her shoulders. What are you looking at? She asks. Nothing, just work email. You had a strange expression. Did I? She walks over, sits on the couch across from me. The TV is on some cooking show neither of us is watching. The room smells like the candle she lit earlier, vanilla and cinnamon. I was just thinking, I say, how much you look like Shelby. Her smile freezes for half a second. I am Shelby. Of course. I just mean more than before, like you're getting better, recovering. The doctor said it would take time. They did. 12 hours, 720 minutes, 43,200 seconds until my wife walks free or dies in that basement. The clock on the wall reads 6:47 p.m. Yolanda picks up the remote, changes the channel to a home renovation show. On screen, a couple is choosing between 2 kitchen designs, debating backsplash tiles like it's the most important decision of their lives. I look at the woman sitting across from me. My wife's face, my wife's hair, my wife's body, holding my actual wife captive 15 feet below us. 12 hours left. One way or another, it would all be over. At 11:28 p.m., Clyde's voice crackles through the earpiece. Sugarland team moving on Barton's clinic, now stand by for confirmation. I'm sitting in an FBI surveillance van parked 3 houses down from my own townhouse, watching the bedroom window where Yolanda went to sleep an hour ago. We ate dinner together at 8 p.m., chicken and rice, polite conversation about the weather. She asked if I wanted dessert. I said no. She cleared the dishes. At 10 p.m., she said goodnight and closed her bedroom door. Now I'm in a van that smells like coffee and electronics, wearing a tactical vest over my shirt, listening to federal agents coordinate a 3-location simultaneous arrest. The hours between dinner and now felt like underwater swimming. Every minute stretched. Every word at the table tasted like metal. Barton secured, Clyde's voice says. 11:32 p.m., no resistance. Medical board running license verification now. I watch my house through the van's tinted window. The bedroom light stays off. Yolanda doesn't know yet that her conspiracy is collapsing around her. Medical board confirms, another voice says through the earpiece. License NPI number registered to Marcus Hoffman, Minneapolis physician. License revoked April 2021. Malpractice settlement, patient death during routine surgery. Hoffman died January 2022. Barton's been using a dead doctor's credentials. The information lands like a punch. Perry Barton, the man who examined Shelby 8 months ago, who certified her paralysis, who signed discharge papers and home care authorizations, stole the identity of a disgraced dead physician and forged every single document. Offshore accounts frozen, Clyde continues. Grand Cayman 2 accounts totaling $847,000. Wire transfers match timeline from Vincent's sister. July through November, 11 deposits ranging 40 to 90,000 each. I close my eyes. $847,000 paid to a con artist with stolen credentials. 8 months of fake doctor signatures. 247 days of fabricated medical certifications. Every form, every paralysis assessment, every piece of paper that kept Shelby trapped in my house lies typed on stolen letterhead by a man using a dead physician's license number. Emerson, you're clear to proceed, Clyde says. We breach on your signal. Remember wife extraction priority 1. I pull off the earpiece, open the van door, step out into December air that smells like rain and cut grass. 2 tactical agents fall in behind me. We walk up the sidewalk to my front door, my house, my key, my wife buried in the basement while her sister sleeps in our bed. I unlock the door. The house is dark except for the nightlight in the hallway. Silent except for the hum of the refrigerator and the distant tick of the kitchen clock. The tactical team enters, first weapons drawn, spreading through the ground floor in coordinated silence. I follow them into the living room. Yolanda is standing in the middle of the room, fully dressed in jeans and a jacket phone in her hand. Not asleep, not surprised. Waiting. When she sees the tactical team, she freezes. The phone drops from her hand, hits the carpet without a sound. Yolanda, Vincent, Clyde says, stepping forward with credentials and handcuffs. FBI. You're under arrest for kidnapping, fraud, conspiracy to commit murder. You can't prove anything, she says. Her voice is calm, almost amused. No one will believe you. You only have words, Forrest. It's the first time she's said my name in weeks. The first time she's broken character since she walked into my hospital room 9 months ago pretending to be Shelby. I need the basement key, I say. She looks at me. Not at Clyde, not at the agents surrounding her. At me. Her eyes, Shelby's eyes, genetically identical, hold something I can't name. Rage, maybe, or grief, or love twisted into something unrecognizable. She loved you, Yolanda says quietly. I love you. What's the difference? The key, now. Her hand goes to her pocket, pulls out a single brass key on a plain ring. Her hand is shaking. She holds it up between us like an offering or a threat, I can't tell which. You could have been happy with me, she says. We could have had everything. The money, the house, the life. No one would have ever known. The key. She stares at me for another 3 seconds. 4, 5, then her fingers open. The key hits the floor. One small metallic sound. Thunder. I bend down, pick it up, feel the cold brass against my palm. The metal is still warm from her pocket. Yolanda is saying something behind me, crying maybe, or cursing, or praying, but I don't turn around. Agent Shelton is reading her rights. Another agent is securing handcuffs. The sounds blur together into white noise. I step over her, literally step over her body, where she's sunk to her knees on the carpet, and walk to the basement door. The key slides into the lock. 9 months since this door was locked. 9 months since Shelby disappeared from my life and this stranger wearing her face took her place. Behind me, Yolanda is still talking. You'll never forgive yourself, Forrest. You'll look at her and see me every day, every night. We're identical. You'll never unsee it. I turn the key. The lock clicks open. The key fell to the wooden floor, small metallic sound like thunder in the silent house. I bent down, picked it up, felt the cold brass against my palm. Yolanda was on the floor behind me, saying something, crying maybe, but I didn't turn around. I stepped over her, walked to the basement door, and put the key in the lock. The door swings open, and the smell hits me first. Stale air confinement, 8 months of darkness compressed into one breath. Emerson, we're right behind you. Medical team standing by. Clyde's voice calls from above. I don't answer. I flip the light switch. Nothing. The bulb is out, or the wiring's been cut. The FBI medic behind me clicks on a flashlight and the beam cuts through the darkness, illuminating wooden stairs descending into black. I take the first step. The wood creaks under my weight. Second step. Third, each one groaning like it hasn't been touched in years, though I know someone's been walking these stairs every day, bringing water, bringing food, keeping Shelby alive while pretending she didn't exist. The temperature drops as I descend. The air gets thicker, harder to breathe. The flashlight beam sweeps the concrete floor at the bottom. I can see the edge of a mattress. Water bottles lined against the wall, a bucket in the corner. The basement is small, maybe 12 by 15 feet. No windows. One bare bulb hanging from the ceiling, dark. The concrete walls are unpainted, raw. This is where my wife has been living. This is where Yolanda buried her. Shelby! My voice sounds strange in the enclosed space. Hollow. Shelby, can you hear me? Movement in the far corner. A shape against the wall, darker than the surrounding darkness. The medic aims the flashlight, and there she is. Shelby is sitting on the floor, back pressed against the corner where 2 concrete walls meet. Her hair is long past her shoulders. It was short, 9 months ago, a pixie cut she got a week before the accident. Now it's grown out, tangled, and matted. Her face is gaunt, cheekbones sharp and prominent. Her eyes squint against the flashlight, unused to brightness after months in near darkness. She's wearing clothes I don't recognize, sweatpants and a t-shirt, both hanging loose on a body that's lost at least 30 pounds. Her arms are thin, skeletal. Her skin is pale, the color of someone who hasn't seen sunlight in 8 months. This is my wife, not the woman upstairs who wore her face. This person, right here. I cross the basement in 4 steps, drop to my knees on the cold concrete floor. Shelby, are you okay? Can you hear me? She looks at me. Her eyes, Shelby's eyes, the ones I've known for 30 years, focus slowly like she's struggling to process what she's seeing. Her lips are chapped dry. When she speaks, her voice is hoarse, barely above a whisper, the sound of someone who hasn't used their voice in months. You finally heard me. 4 words, that's all. But they break something inside me that's been held together by discipline and procedure for 9 months. My vision blurs. I reach out slowly, carefully, like approaching someone who might shatter if touched too hard. I'm sorry, I say. I'm so sorry it took this long. She doesn't answer with words. She just leans forward and I wrap my arms around her gently because she's so thin, so fragile, so different from the woman I remember. She's trembling. I can feel her bones through the t-shirt. She smells like unwashed clothes and concrete and desperation. The medics are here, I whisper into her hair. We're getting you out. We're taking you to the hospital. You're safe now. Her arms come up slowly, wrap around my back. Her grip is weak but deliberate. She's holding on like she's afraid I'll disappear if she lets go. I knew you'd come, she whispers. I knew you were listening. The knocking, I say, every night. That was you. You were talking to me. She pulls back slightly, looks at me with those sunken eyes. Her face is so thin, so changed. But it's her, it's Shelby. Not the performance upstairs, not the calculated imitation, the real woman I married 30 years ago. She nods, weak, barely perceptible. I knew you'd figure it out, she whispers. I knew. The medic kneels beside us. Ma'am, I'm with the FBI medical team. We need to get you upstairs, get you checked out. Can you stand? Shelby looks at him, then back at me. Is she gone? Yolanda's in custody, I say. She can't hurt you anymore. And the doctor, the lawyer. All of them, all arrested. She closes her eyes. One tear runs down her cheek, cutting a clean line through the dust and grime on her face. Then she lifts her hand, weak, trembling bones, visible through thin skin, like the whole structure of her body has been worn down to its essential framework, and reaches toward me. Her fingers touch my shoulder. Tap, tap, tap. 3 times on my shoulder, the same rhythm, the same desperate code. Slow, deliberate. The exact rhythm I'd heard through the basement door every night for 8 months. Not random knocking, not pipes settling or mice in the walls or foundation damage or any of the explanations I'd invented to make sense of sounds I couldn't explain. Her, talking to me the only way she could. 3 knocks, I say, my voice breaking. Every night I thought I didn't know what to think. 3 knocks, she whispers. Because I'm here, because I'm alive, because you needed to know. I look at her hand, still resting on my shoulder. The fingernails are broken dirt under what's left of them. The knuckles are swollen, probably from hitting the door night after night. The skin is bruised in places, scraped raw in others. Evidence of 8 months of trying to be heard. I'm sorry I didn't understand sooner, I say. You understood when it mattered, she whispers. You're here now. The medic clears his throat gently. Sir, we really need to get her upstairs. Get an IV started, check vitals, transport to Memorial Hermann. I nod, help Shelby to her feet. She can barely stand. Her legs shake. I have to support most of her weight as we move toward the stairs. She lifts her hand one more time, taps my shoulder. 3 times. Exactly like the knocking through the door. For 8 months she was talking, and I just didn't know how to listen. Clyde's forensic tech opens Yolanda's laptop in the townhouse office at 1:14 a.m. and finds a folder labeled Schedule inside one document, one date circled in red, 11 days from today. The ambulance took Shelby to Memorial Hermann 20 minutes ago. I should be with her. But Clyde asked me to stay while they processed the house, and I couldn't leave. Couldn't walk away from the evidence of what almost happened. I'm standing behind the tech, a young woman with FBI credentials clipped to her belt, watching her navigate through file directories on Yolanda's laptop. The screen illuminates the dark office with cold blue light. Got something, she says. Financial folder, multiple PDFs. She clicks. The first document loads. Life insurance policy, issued August 2024, 4 months ago. Policyholder Shelby Emerson. Coverage amount $8 million. My throat tightens. Beneficiary, the text says, scrolling down. Seabrook Holdings, LLC, Delaware Corporation. Clyde leans over my shoulder. Run the LLC registration. The tech pulls up another window, types rapidly. Registered agent matches Vincent's attorney, Russell Caldwell, single member Yolanda Marie Vincent. $8 million, on top of everything else, the inheritance, the secret account, the house, the fraudulent mortgage. She was going to collect on my wife's life insurance by killing the woman whose identity she'd stolen. There's another file, the text says, just labeled Schedule. She opens it. A single-page document, no letterhead, no formatting, just 3 lines of text. Subject: expiration due to ongoing health complications. Optimal window: December 26, 2024. Execution method: medication, interaction, cardiac event, natural appearance. I read the date again, December 26th, 11 days from now. She was going to kill Shelby, I say. My voice sounds distant. 11 more days. Clyde's hand grips my shoulder. If we'd waited another week to move. We didn't. But we almost did. If Russell Caldwell hadn't tried to flee, if the FBI had stuck to their original timeline, if I hadn't pushed for immediate extraction, 11 more days and Shelby would have been dead. A cardiac event, medication interaction, something that looked natural enough to pass a medical examiner's review, especially with Perry Barton, the fake doctor with stolen credentials, ready to sign whatever death certificate Yolanda needed. I grip the edge of the desk to stay standing. The wood is smooth under my palms, solid. 11 days. 264 hours. 15,840 minutes until my wife would have died, and I would never have known she was alive. Print everything, Clyde says to the tech. Chain of custody documentation. This goes directly to the prosecutor. I look at the screen. December 26th. Christmas. Yolanda was going to kill my wife on Christmas and collect $8 million while I grieved at a funeral for a woman who'd already been dead for 9 months. Come on, Clyde says. There's nothing more you need to see here. Go to the hospital. Be with Shelby. But 6 hours later at 7:30 a.m., I'm standing in the FBI Houston field office watching Yolanda Vincent through a one-way mirror. She's sitting at a metal table in an interrogation room, hands folded in front of her, still wearing the same jeans and jacket from last night. Her hair is pulled back in a ponytail. No tears, no shaking, no visible distress. She looks like someone waiting for a bus, not someone facing federal kidnapping and conspiracy charges. The interrogating agent, a woman in her 40s, dark suit, professional demeanor, sits across from her with a folder open. We found the insurance policy, the agent says. $8 million. We found the schedule. December 26th. 11 days from now. Yolanda doesn't respond. You had the plan in place, the agent continues. The access, the timeline, the fake doctor ready to certify cause of death. Why didn't you execute? Long silence. Yolanda looks down at her hands, then up at the mirror. She can't see me, but I feel like she's looking directly into my eyes. Because I didn't want to anymore, she says quietly. That's not an answer, the agent says. What changed? Yolanda doesn't respond, just looks back down at her hands. Ms. Vincent, you're facing life in federal prison. Cooperation at this stage. I already told you, Yolanda says. I didn't want to anymore. That's the answer. Clyde is standing beside me in the observation room. She stopped, I say. Not because we were close to discovering her. She stopped before that. Remorse, Clyde asks. No. I think about the teriyaki beef, the way she looked at me across the dinner table, the conversation about starting fresh, about being happy together. She fell in love with me, the real me, not the assets or the money or the plan, and she couldn't go through with killing Shelby because of it. How do you hate someone who imprisoned your wife but chose not to kill her because she fell in love with you? Through the glass, Yolanda sits perfectly still. The agent keeps asking questions about the timeline, about Russell Caldwell's involvement, about Perry Barton's role, but Yolanda has stopped answering. She's just looking at her reflection in the mirror, looking at me without seeing me. The agent closes her folder, stands up. We'll continue this after you've consulted with your attorney. Yolanda doesn't move, just sits there with her hands folded on the metal table, staring at the mirror. I need to go, I tell Clyde. I need to be with Shelby. Go, he says. We'll handle the rest. But I don't move. I stand there watching Yolanda Vincent sit perfectly still, hands folded on the metal table, looking at her own reflection in the mirror, looking at me without seeing me. The agent kept asking why she stopped, what changed, but I already knew. She said, I don't want to anymore, 4 words, and I knew they weren't about money or fear or getting caught. I don't know what to feel. Shelby's voice is hoarse and unfamiliar after 8 months of basement silence, but she speaks clearly into the FBI recorder propped on the Memorial Hermann Hospital bed tray. I heard everything through the vents. I left the FBI interrogation room 36 hours ago and came straight here. Shelby's been recovering IV fluids, vitamin supplements, physical therapy to rebuild atrophied muscles. Now she's sitting up in bed, her hand in mine, giving testimony like she's been waiting 9 months to speak. Clyde is on the other side of the bed, notepad open, recording everything. The heating vents, Shelby continues, Her voice cracks on certain words, unused to extended conversation. She didn't know sound carried to the basement. I heard names, numbers, plans. Can you tell us what you heard? Clyde asks. Shelby nods. Russell Caldwell visited twice, talked about estate transfer timing, probate schedules. Perry Barton came once worried about the certification trail, wanted assurance his fake credentials wouldn't be traced, and 4 others I didn't recognize. She recites names: Sarah Mitchell, Gregory Barnes, Olivia Freeman, Marcus Donovan, then account numbers, Grand Cayman routing codes, wire transfer amounts, meeting dates from July through November. I memorized everything I heard, she says. Had nothing else to do but listen and remember. I squeeze her hand. The bones feel fragile under my palm, but her grip is stronger than yesterday, stronger than it was in the basement 2 nights ago. These details are extremely helpful, Mrs. Emerson, Clyde says. We'll verify everything against our investigation. Shelby looks at me. Her eyes are clearer now, less haunted than when I found her in the dark. Did I help? You helped, I say. You did everything right. But 6 hours later, Clyde pulls me aside in the FBI Houston field office hallway, away from other agents, and his expression tells me something's wrong. Your wife's testimony, he says quietly. 70% matches our investigation. The other 30% dead ends. I don't understand. What do you mean? The 4 additional names she provided, none of them match any leads we've developed. The account numbers trace to empty shell corporations established last month, too recent to be part of the original conspiracy. The realization hits slow then all at once. Yolanda knew Shelby was listening. She fed false names through those vents deliberately, Clyde confirms. Sacrificial pawns. If Shelby escaped and testified, we'd waste resources chasing ghosts while real accomplices disappeared. Even the victim's testimony was a minefield. Even rescue came with traps. But you said 70% matches, I say. Russell Caldwell, Perry Barton, those were real. Yes. She had to mix truth with lies to make it believable. Caldwell and Barton were always going down, she sacrificed them. But the 4 additional names were insurance, decoys to protect higher-level accomplices we hadn't identified yet. Had I catch the past tense. Clyde nods. We got Trina Hart independently this morning. Bank official 51 works in Wells Fargo's fraud investigation division. Been feeding Yolanda inside information on transaction monitoring for 18 months. Forensic accounting caught her not testimony. We traced irregular access patterns to offshore account verification systems. He shows me a photo. A woman in business attire, professional headshot, Trina Hart. I've never seen her before. The real network is dismantled, Clyde says, but not because of what Shelby heard through the vents, because of what we found independently. I lean against the hallway wall. The fluorescent lights overhead hum sterile and constant. Does Shelby know? I ask. We briefed her an hour ago, Clyde says. She took it well. Said she should have realized your sister-in-law was too loud on those calls, too specific with the numbers, wanted Shelby to hear. That night I returned to Memorial Hermann. The hospital smells like antiseptic and floor wax. Shelby's watching the local news on the TV mounted to the wall footage of arrests, FBI agents leading suspects into federal courthouse. Russell Caldwell in an orange jumpsuit, Perry Barton with his hands cuffed, Trina Hart being escorted from the Wells Fargo building downtown. They verified everything independently, Shelby says when I walk in. She's not looking at me, just at the screen. Didn't just believe me. You gave them the starting point, I say. That matters. She shakes her head. The starting point was wrong, 30% false. If they'd believed me without verification, real criminals would have walked. I sit in the chair beside her bed. The vinyl creaks under my weight. The FBI told me you weren't surprised about the planted names. I wasn't. She finally looks at me. Yolanda was always 3 steps ahead. Even in the basement, she was controlling what I knew, what I could report if I escaped. The only difference this time is that someone actually listened carefully enough to catch the lies. On the TV screen, they're showing Yolanda's arrest footage from Thursday morning. The tactical team entering our townhouse. Shelby watches without expression. Finally, you can hear, she says. The words stop me cold. 2 words, 3 syllables each. Finally, and you can hear. The second time she said them, and this time I understand what I missed the first time. You said that before, I tell her. In the basement, when I found you. I know. She looks at me now, not at the screen. This time you'll never forget what it means. First time meant you found me. You physically heard the knocking, decoded the pattern, came to the basement door. Second time means you actually listened. The FBI listened. Everyone verified instead of assuming. Truth was separated from lies through careful attention. I won't forget, I say. My wife looked at me through the hospital screen showing Trina Hart's arrest footage and said it again. Finally, you can hear. She'd said it once before in the basement when I found her after 8 months. This was the second time. First time meant you found me. Second time meant you actually listened. I will never forget. The federal judge reads the sentence for Yolanda Vincent, 25 years for kidnapping, fraud, conspiracy to commit murder, and before the bailiff leads her away, she turns to look at Forrest one last time. 3 months since the rescue. 3 months of preliminary hearings, plea negotiations, victim impact statements. Now it's March 2025 and I'm sitting in Houston federal court beside Shelby watching justice get measured in years. Judge Brennan, a woman in her 60s with gray hair and reading glasses, sits elevated behind the bench. Yolanda Marie Vincent, this court sentences you to 25 years federal imprisonment without possibility of parole for 5 years. The bailiff steps forward. Yolanda stands from the defendant's table, hands cuffed in front of her. She's wearing an orange jumpsuit. Her hair is pulled back. She looks smaller than I remember. And then she turns. Not to her attorney, not to the gallery, to me. She looks at me for 5 seconds. Doesn't speak. Doesn't smile or cry or plead. Just looks. Like she's trying to memorize something before it disappears forever. My face, my eyes, the man she fell in love with while destroying his life. I don't look away. Then the bailiff touches her elbow and she turns forward and they lead her through the side door. Judge Brennan continues. Russell Caldwell, 18 years. Perry Barton, 12 years. Trina Hart, 8 years. Basil Pierce, 3-year sentence, suspended conditional on full cooperation, commercial pilot certification, permanently revoked. The gavel comes down, 3 sharp cracks against wood. This court is adjourned. Shelby reaches for my hand. Her grip is still weak, but stronger than last month. It's over, she whispers. It's over, I repeat. That same week, I sit in a bank attorney's office signing asset recovery documents. Total recovery, $18.5 million, the attorney says. Fraudulent mortgage, voided offshore accounts, seized, investment accounts restored. The court executed your mother-in-law's original will. Sign here. I sign where he points. Don't read the fine print. Don't ask about tax implications or distribution schedules. Through the glass partition behind the attorney's desk, I can see into the hallway. Shelby is out there with her physical therapist, a woman named Monica who comes twice a week. Shelby takes 3 steps with a cane, pauses, takes 3 more. Mr. Emerson, do you have questions about the distribution? No, I say, watching Shelby walk. $18.5 million recovered. Didn't read a single line, just watched my wife take 3 steps with a cane and thought this is the only number that matters. May 2025, 14 months since the accident, 5 months since the rescue. Shelby walks out the front door of our townhouse, her first time outside in over a year, moving slowly with a cane, 1 careful step at a time down the porch stairs. Lorraine Wolfe is waiting at the gate. She sees Shelby and her face crumbles. She opens the gate, hurries forward, wraps her arms around Shelby gently like she's afraid of breaking something precious. I heard you through the wall for months, Lorraine says, crying. I should have called someone sooner. I'm so sorry. You wrote it down, Shelby says. You heard me, that's enough. Lorraine pulls back, wipes her eyes. I want you to have this. She hands Shelby a spiral notebook, the kind kids use for school. Blue cover, college-ruled pages. Shelby opens it, page after page of dated entries in Lorraine's handwriting. April 3rd, 2024, 11:47 p.m. Knocking sound rhythmic, 3 knocks repeated. April 8th, 2024, 1:22 a.m. Knocking again, same pattern. April 15th, 2024, 12:30 a.m. Knocking 3 times, pause, 3 times. 47 entries spanning April through December. So you know you weren't forgotten, Lorraine says. Every single day I heard you. Shelby is crying now, holding the notebook against her chest. Every single day. Thank you for listening when no one else did, I tell Lorraine. I just wish I'd been braver sooner, she says. 47 nights. 47 entries in a neighbor's spiral notebook. 47 times someone heard my wife and wrote it down. Memory carved in ink. That same week I drive to Katy to visit Nettie Newberry. She opens the door looking 10 years older than when I met her last March. Dark circles under her eyes. Guilt written in every line of her face. Mr. Emerson, she says, I didn't expect come in. We sit in her living room. She makes tea neither of us drinks. I knew something was wrong, she says finally, when the blood types didn't match. When the woman in the hospital bed looked at me like she'd never seen me before. Your sister-in-law paid me to stay quiet, $20,000. I've lived with that for 8 months. You kept the photocopied records anyway, I say. That's why we had evidence. I don't deserve thanks, she says. I took money to stay silent while your wife was in a basement. Your conscience kept those copies, I tell her. That matters. I'm not a good person. I think about 47 nights of knocking logged in a neighbor's notebook. About 8 months of conspiracy enabled by people who knew something was wrong but stayed silent. About Yolanda who fell in love and couldn't kill. about Basil, who betrayed and then cooperated, about this nurse sitting in front of me who took blood money and still photocopied proof because some part of her knew it was wrong. No one is entirely deserving or unworthy, I say. You did the right thing when it mattered most. Nurse Nettie Newberry sat in her Katie living room and said, I don't deserve thanks for keeping those records. I took money to stay quiet. I thought about 47 nights of knocking logged in a neighbor's notebook, 8 months of a conspiracy enabled by people who knew something was wrong but stayed silent, and one nurse whose conscience made her photocopy proof anyway. I said no one is entirely deserving or unworthy. You did the right thing when it mattered most. And I meant it. 6 months after the rescue, I sit in a Boeing 777 cockpit at 35,000 feet over the Pacific Ocean at night, and for the first time in a year, when I look down at the black water, I don't feel afraid. The instrument panel glows soft blue and green. The autopilot is engaged. My co-pilot, a younger man named Marcus, who I've flown with a dozen times, is reading approach charts for our landing in Sydney 6 hours from now. Below us, the ocean stretches black and infinite. Scattered ship lights dot the surface like stars reflected in dark water. No land visible in any direction, just ocean and sky, and the thin aluminum shell of this aircraft carrying 200 passengers through the night. I used to love these flights. Then for a year I couldn't take them. Couldn't look down at that black water without thinking about Shelby trapped in a basement while I flew across oceans unreachable. Now I look down and think she's home. Really home. Safe. Not in a hospital bed, not in a therapy facility. Home in our Houston townhouse, probably asleep in our bed, the real bed, with the windows open and the ceiling fan turning and no locks on any doors. Captain, you all right? Marcus asks. You've been quiet since Honolulu. For the first time in a long time, I say I'm really okay. He nods, goes back to his charts. I told Shelby through the basement door that night when I didn't know if she could hear me. When I fly the Pacific at night, I look down at the black water and think about you. Every single flight. Now I look down and think she's there. Not in my memory or my fear. Actually there. At home. Breathing. Alive. Recovering. The ocean looks different now. Not lonely. Just dark and vast and indifferent. The way oceans are supposed to look. 35,000 feet above the Pacific. Wife safe at home in Houston. No basement. No impostor. No knocking through doors. Just flight and home and finally peace. 2 months later, August 2025. I stand at the far end of a physical therapy room in Memorial Hermann Hospital with my arms outstretched. Arms out. I call across the 15 feet of polished floor between us. I'm right here. Take your time. Shelby stands at the other end holding a walker. She's gained back 20 of the 30 pounds she lost. Her hair is shorter. Now she cut it herself last month, said she wanted something that felt like hers. She's wearing athletic clothes, sneakers. Her physical therapist, Dr. Helena Cross, a woman in her 40s with kind eyes and infinite patience, stands to the side with a clipboard. 10 steps, Dr. Cross says. You've done 8 with the walker. Time to try 10 without. Shelby looks at me. You'll catch me if I fall. I'll catch you. She releases the walker. Her hands come up slightly for balance. Her legs are stronger than they were 6 months ago, but still rebuilding muscle that atrophied during 8 months in a basement. She takes the first step. Her right foot lifts, moves forward, sets down. Weight shifts. Left foot follows. Step 1. Step 2. I keep my arms out ready. Dr. Cross watches but doesn't move. This is Shelby's moment. Step 3. Step 4. Her breathing is steady. Her eyes are locked on mine. Not on the floor, not on her feet, on my face. Step 5. Step 6. Step 7. She's halfway across the room. Her hands are still up, fingertips spread for balance. Her body sways slightly with each step but doesn't fall. Step 8. She stops, stands still, looks at me with an expression I can't quite read. Are you counting? She asks. Step 8. She stopped and asked, Are you counting? Yes. I'd been counting since the first knock through the basement door. I am, I say. She smiles, a real smile, the kind I haven't seen since before March 2024. Good, she says. Step 9. Step 10. She reaches me. I catch her not because she's falling, but because she leans into my arms deliberately. Her weight against my chest, her head on my shoulder, her breathing warm against my neck. Behind us, Dr. Cross quietly leaves the room. The door clicks closed. 10 steps, Shelby whispers. Did you count all 10? Everyone. She pulls back slightly, looks up at me. I counted 47 nights of knocking, every single one. Even when I didn't think anyone was listening, I counted. I know. 3 taps on your shoulder when you found me. You counted those. I counted. Now 10 steps. Now 10 steps. She rests her head against my chest again. I hold her carefully like something precious that was lost and then found. 10 steps without the cane. I counted every one. When Shelby asked, Are you counting at step 8, I realized she'd been counting 2. 47 nights, she knocked through the basement door one tap at a time, 3 taps on my shoulder after rescue, now 10 steps across a therapy room. She always counted each step, each knock, each moment. Even when no one was listening, she was counting. And now I count with her. December 2025. 1 year after the rescue, and my wife stands in our kitchen making coffee without a cane, and the smell is just coffee. Nothing else. No fear, no paranoia, just Monday morning and caffeine. 4 months ago, she took 10 steps across a therapy room and I counted every one. Now she moves from counter to table carrying 2 cups without thinking about balance or muscle strength or whether her legs will hold her weight. She just moves, the way people are supposed to move. Sunlight comes through the kitchen window, the same window where Lorraine Wolfe used to hear knocking through the wall and write it down in a spiral notebook. Now it's just a window with morning light and no sounds except coffee brewing and the refrigerator humming. I sit at the table with my tablet reviewing my flight schedule for the week. Houston to Tokyo, Wednesday morning, back Sunday evening, 4-day turnaround, normal pilot rotation, normal life. Shelby sets a cup in front of me. Here. Thank you. I take the cup, watch her move easily back to the counter for her own. Which route this week? She asks, sitting across from me. Houston, Tokyo, Wednesday morning, back Sunday evening, 4-day turnaround. She sips her coffee. The steam rises between us in the sunlight. A year ago I couldn't stand. Now I'm asking about your flight schedule like it's normal. It is normal, I say. Finally. A year ago today, December 15th, 2024, FBI agents breached our townhouse at 12:15 a.m. I stepped over Yolanda Vincent's body in the living room, unlocked the basement door with a key she dropped, and found my wife emaciated and weak in a corner. Now Shelby sits across from me drinking coffee she made herself, asking about my work schedule, planning her week. This is what victory looks like. Not dramatic, not cinematic, just Monday morning coffee and sunlight and normal conversation about flight schedules. She looks at me over the rim of her cup and there's a slight smile on her face, something mischievous in her eyes. Remember to lock the basement door before you leave, she says. I look up from my tablet, our eyes meet, long pause, then we both start laughing. Real laughter, not nervous or bitter or broken, actual, genuine laughter. We laughed. About the basement, about the knocking, about 8 months of imprisonment, and the laughter was real, not bitter, not broken. Healed. Too soon? Shelby asks, still laughing. No, I say, wiping my eyes. Perfect timing, actually. A year later and we can finally laugh about it. The laughter fades slowly. We sit in the warm silence that follows, the kind of silence that feels comfortable instead of threatening. Shelby reaches across the table. I take her hand. Our fingers interlock. I'm glad you're here, she says. I'm glad you found me. She squeezes my hand. We found each other. I think about the year that just passed. 47 knocks through a basement door that I couldn't explain. 3 taps on my shoulder when I finally pulled her out of the dark. 10 steps across a therapy room without a cane. Every number counted. Every moment mattered. Yolanda Vincent is serving 25 years in federal prison. Russell Caldwell, 18 years. Perry Barton, 12. Trina Hart, 8. Basil Pierce lost his pilot's license and his family and has to live with what he did. The assets were recovered. The house is ours. The inheritance was executed correctly. $18.5 million restored to its rightful owner. But none of those numbers matter as much as these one wife. 1 year of recovery, 1 Monday morning drinking coffee together. I finish my coffee, stand up, carry my cup to the sink. When do you leave? Shelby asks. Flight departs at 10 a.m. Wednesday. I'll head to the airport around 7. I'll make you breakfast before you go. You don't have to. I know, I want to. I walk to the basement door. It's in the hallway between the kitchen and the living room. A normal door, just wood and hinges and a lock. I check the lock, turn the knob to make sure it's secure. Shelby watches from the kitchen table. She doesn't ask why, she knows. Every time before I leave, I say, "Good," she says. "Never forget to listen. If you take nothing else from this story, take this listen when someone is knocking. Count when someone is counting. Hear the ones you love before silence becomes permanent." I lock the basement door every time before I leave for a flight. Not out of fear that it will happen again. Not out of paranoia or trauma that controls me. Out of remembrance. So I never fall asleep so soundly that I don't hear the one I love knocking. So I never stop counting the moments that matter. So I never forget that the most important numbers in life aren't dollar amounts or prison sentences or asset valuations. They're knocks and taps and steps and years recovered. Every Monday before I leave for a flight, I walk to the basement door and check the lock. Shelby watches from the kitchen with her coffee, and we both know why. Not out of fear that it will happen again, out of remembrance that it happened once. I lock the basement door every time before leaving. Not fear, but memory. so I never fall asleep so soundly that I don't hear the one I love knocking. And to you listening to my story, remember this: the people closest to you deserve your attention most. Don't make my mistake. I was so focused on being a good caregiver that I stopped truly seeing the person in front of me. I didn't ask hard questions when blood types didn't match. I didn't investigate when my wife's personality shifted overnight. I accepted the convenient explanation because questioning felt like doubt, and I thought doubt meant I wasn't devoted enough. But doubt isn't disloyalty. Sometimes it's love protecting itself. Family betrayal cuts deeper than any stranger's crime because it exploits the trust we rely on most. When someone who shares your blood uses that intimacy as a weapon, it rewrites your understanding of safety. But healing isn't about forgetting, it's about counting what matters: 47 knocks, 3 taps, 10 steps without a cane. I believe God allowed me to hear those knocks so I'd never stop listening when the ones I love need me to hear them. Family betrayal taught me that love means staying awake, staying vigilant. Never assuming silence means everything is fine. If this story moved, you leave a comment. Have you ever had to choose between trusting your instincts and trusting someone you love? Your perspective matters. Share this with someone who needs to hear it. And if you want more stories about resilience and finding truth, subscribe to. I share these stories because they matter, and so do you. Thank you for staying until the very end. It means more than you know. Final reminder: certain details have been fictionalized for storytelling. But the heart of this message about listening, counting what matters, and never falling asleep to the people you love, that's real.